Chapter 439. Injuries under Ningyu's guidance. Feng Zi's every move was aimed at Zhou Jianming's right hand. In just 3 moves, he defeated Zhou Jianming. After defeating Zhou Jianming, Feng Zi went straight to the point. Without any flourishes, he said, "Thankfully, I was the one who attacked. If it were Ningyu, I'm afraid you wouldn't have been so lucky. The winner is king, and the loser is in the wrong. Since you agreed to the bet, you must accept your loss. Go in." Zhou Jianming still had some pride. He did not continue to make things difficult for Ningyu and Feng Zi. Instead, he moved slightly to the side, leaving a path for Ningyu and company. "The injury on your right hand has already reached the tendons and bones. If it is not treated in time, there might be repercussions." Ningyu did not enter Tianyuan restaurant immediately. Instead, he stopped in front of Zhou Jianming and whispered, "Don't inject any yuan qi into your right hand for the next 3 days. Otherwise, your right hand will be completely crippled." With that said, Ningyu entered Tianyuan restaurant without looking back, leaving behind a shocked Zhou Jianming. By now, Zhou Jianming had almost understood everything. The warrior who knew that his right hand was injured was not Feng Zi, but Ningyu. In the beginning, he had looked down on Ningyu. In the end, Ningyu was the most impressive person. "I also want to be treated in time. Unfortunately, today's banquet is very important. I must attend." Taking a deep breath, Zhou Jianming walked towards Tianyuan restaurant unwillingly. Zhou Jianming was well aware of the injury on his right hand. Even if he did not exchange blows with Feng Zi, he would not be able to last long. The black market expert who treated him previously had said that unless someone had extreme control over soul power and personally joined up his tendons and meridians, the consequences would be dire. However, there were very few warriors who had extreme control over soul power. At the very least, in the vast capital, only the patriarchs of Danwu College and the royal family could do it. Inviting the patriarchs of Danwu College and the royal family to treat him? What a joke! With his status in the black market, it was impossible for them to do everything they could to treat him. The only thing the black market could do was to alleviate his injuries from time to time. It was extremely difficult to completely heal him. As soon as he stepped into the Heavenly Yuan Tower, Ningyu felt no less than 10 spiritual perceptions sweep over him. There were even a few soul forces that wanted a yard after taking an inch. Not only did they sweep over his body, they even wanted to enter his sea of consciousness to investigate. With a cold snort, Ningyu released his soul perception and counterattacked. Puchi! Ningyu's counterattack was very strong. In one of the rooms on the 2nd floor of the Tianyuan restaurant, an early primal core stage ancient martial art practitioner spat out a mouthful of fresh blood as he hurriedly retracted his soul perception from Ningyu. Puff! Puff! In one of the rooms on the 3rd floor, 2 late primal core stage ancient martial art practitioners felt their hearts skip a beat. Without any hesitation, they immediately retracted their spiritual senses. Even so, these 2 late primal core stage ancient martial art practitioners still suffered a strong blow from Ningyu and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. It was obvious that their souls had suffered a certain degree of damage. When Ningyu released his soul perception, Feng Zi stood where he was and did not move. Only when Ningyu retracted his soul perception did he ask in a low voice, "Where are we going now?" The 3rd floor. Ningyu's gaze moved back and forth on the 3rd floor, finally stopping at a room in the corner of the 3rd floor. That room. With that, Ningyu strode towards the 3rd floor. Behind him, Feng Zi didn't say a word and followed with large strides. Whoosh! However, before Ningyu could enter the 3rd floor, a figure flashed in front of him and blocked his way. This sudden change caused Ningyu's expression to turn ugly as he lifted his head to look. Zhang Tianwen. Looking at the familiar figure in front of him, Ningyu was slightly shocked. "Haha, I didn't expect you to still remember me. Zhang Tianwen smiled slightly and said, Ningyu, are you interested in sparring with me? After a short moment of shock, Ningyu said lightly, Early primal core stage cultivation, 5th grade middle stage soul strength. Looks like you've been training hard these few days. You're not bad yourself. Late true martial stage cultivation, 5th grade soul strength. Zhang Tianwen wanted to imitate Ningyu and show off, but found that Ningyu's soul strength was rather vague. With his perception, he could only detect that Ningyu's soul strength was 5th grade. I'm not interested in sparring with you. Don't block my way. Ningyu was not interested in sparring with Zhang Tianwen. Now he only wanted to quickly see Lu Wei and Xikongling. As for sparring with Zhang Tianwen, he did not have that much time. What? You don't dare to spar with me. Zhang Tianwen moved his feet and firmly blocked Ningyu's path. Furthermore, he slightly raised his voice and said in a clear voice, Last time during the Danwu College's Sacred Institute examination, I had just come out of seclusion and my cultivation was not considered stable. You took the initiative. This time, my cultivation has completely stabilized. Whether it's an alchemy battle or a martial battle, choose one and I'll accompany you to the end. Zhang Tianwen's words were very knowledgeable and the meaning was very obvious. The reason why he lost to Ningyu previously was completely because his cultivation was not stable, and Ningyu had an unfair advantage. This time when he came out of seclusion and completely stabilized his cultivation, he once again issued a challenge to Ningyu. If Ningyu did not agree, it meant that he was afraid of him. You're the other core disciple of Danwu College's Sacred Institute. Before Ningyu could speak, Feng Zi took a step forward and said in a deep voice, How about I spar with you? You. Zhang Tianwen's gaze swept across Feng Zi's body. Then he extended a finger and shook it, saying, You're still not qualified. Against you, I only need 3 moves to defeat you. Humph. If you can defeat me in 3 moves, Feng Zi snorted coldly, obviously very angry at Zhang Tianwen's words. However, before he finished speaking, Ningyu's words sounded beside his ear. Zhang Tianwen is very strong. You might not be able to last 3 moves against him. Shaking his head imperceptibly at Feng Zi, Ningyu turned around and said to Zhang Tianwen, Give me a reason why I want to spar with you. Otherwise, no matter how you boast, I won't spar with you. If I say that it was my idea to invite Lu Wei and Xikongling over, is this reason sufficient? The corners of Zhang Tianwen's mouth curved into an arc as he said with a smile, It's indeed very sufficient. Ningyu's expression was devoid of joy or sorrow as his indifferent words resounded in this area. Then let's fight. Ha ha ha, this is the Ningyu I know. Looking up at the sky and laughing wildly, Zhang Tianwen immediately changed the topic and said coldly, I've waited for this day for a long time. Today, you're destined to suffer a crushing defeat. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Ningyu frowned slightly and said coldly, Crack. In the next moment, Ningyu's feet fiercely stomped on the stairs, and his body shot out explosively. The wooden stairs even cracked due to Ningyu's great strength, emitting cracking sounds. Come at me. Chapter 440. Zhang Tianwen's Swish. Zhang Tianwen's speed was very fast, and he appeared in front of Ningyu almost instantaneously. He used his fist, which contained violent yuan qi, to strike fiercely at Ningyu's chest. The yuan qi contained in Zhang Tianwen's fist caused Ningyu's heart to tremble, and he was slightly shocked. Although Zhang Tianwen was only at the early primal core stage, the density of his yuan qi was not weak, and it was equivalent to a peak primal core stage warrior. In other words, based on the strength of yuan qi, Zhang Tianwen was comparable to a peak primal core stage warrior. Compared to the Danwu College's assessment, Zhang Tianwen's strength has increased by quite a bit. Zhang Tianwen is indeed the Zhang family's peerless genius. His cultivation is only at the early primal core stage, but he can already display such a powerful attack. Ning Yu will most likely be in danger if he fights with him. Not in danger. Haha, Ning Yu will definitely lose. Creak. Ning Yu and Zhang Tianwen were both core disciples of the Danwu College's Sacred Institute. This was their second clash, and many warriors naturally did not want to miss it. Therefore, all the warriors in the Tianyuan Tower opened their doors to observe the fight between Ning Yu and Zhang Tianwen. However, only one room's door was not opened, and that was the room where Si Gongling and Lu Wei were. "Can you open the door?" In the sealed room, Lu Wei came to the door and asked a middle-aged man cautiously. "Ning Yu is fighting with Zhang Tianwen outside. I'm sorry, but I can't help." Before Lu Wei could finish her sentence, the middle-aged man waved his hand and said, "Unless there is an order from the emperor, I will definitely not open the door." Hearing this, Lu Wei revealed a disappointed expression. A day ago, the middle-aged man had suddenly come to Si Gongling's house, and without a word he had directly brought her, Si Gongling, and Xiao Yu to the Tianyuan Tower. Since the middle-aged man was at the early stage of Yinyang realm, they could only choose to stay here. Hearing the conversation between Ning Yu and Zhang Tianwen just now, Lu Wei really wanted to go out and take a look. Unfortunately, the middle-aged man guarded the door like a door god, not moving at all. "Lu Wei, save your strength. Ning, you will definitely come to this room in a moment. We'll wait for him to personally open the door." Comparatively speaking, Si Gongling was like a bodhisattva in meditation, sitting upright on the chair with his eyes slightly closed. Ouch! However, just as Si Gongling finished speaking, Xiao Yu, who was next to him, kicked the chair and directly kicked Si Gongling to the ground. "Ning Yu is fighting Zhang Tianwen with all his might outside. Not only are you not going to help, but you're also talking nonsense here?" Xiao Yu put her hands on her hips and said angrily, "Do you believe that I won't teach you a lesson?" Si Gongling crawled up from the ground, scratched his head and said awkwardly, "I also want to go out and help, but with this door god here I can't do anything." As he spoke, Si Gongling pointed at the middle-aged man in front of the door. His meaning was self-evident. Humph! Although Xiao Yu's tone was very tough, she was directly discouraged when she saw the middle-aged man. With a cold snort, she turned her body around and angrily sat down on the chair. Bang! At the same time, in the lobby of the Heaven Yuan Tower, Ning Yu did not retreat but instead advanced. He threw a backhand punch, which collided with Zhang Tianwen's fist. A clear sound rang out, and soon after, the two figures rapidly retreated. Ning Yu only took 3 steps back before stabilizing his figure. On the other hand, Zhang Tianwen retreated a total of 5 steps before stabilizing his figure. With this blow, the superiority of the two was immediately determined. "Ning Yu, I didn't think that you'd also improved so much in the past few days." After stabilizing his figure, Zhang Tianwen's expression was cold as he said in a low voice, "No wonder you're so arrogant," but at this point, Zhang Tianwen paused for a moment, then changed the topic and said coldly, "You're still far from being able to defeat me with just this bit of strength." Swish! In the next moment, Zhang Tianwen once again dashed out. His body was like a sharp sword, rapidly charging towards Ning Yu. Chi-chi! Compared to the first attack, Zhang Tianwen's speed was much faster. So much so that the friction between his clothes and the air produced a chi-chi sound. Zhang Tianwen is angry. Zhang Tianwen must feel embarrassed that he failed to gain the upper hand in the first exchange. No matter what, he will give it his all in the second exchange. In my opinion, Ning Yu will definitely not be able to block this attack. The difference in cultivation between Ning Yu and Zhang Tianwen is too great. One is at the late, true martial stage, the other at the early primal core stage. They can't be mentioned in the same breath. I'm more optimistic about Ning Yu. If Ning Yu can defeat Zhang Tianwen once, he'll be able to defeat him a second time, a third time, or even countless times. The second exchange between Ning Yu and Zhang Tianwen was finally not as one-sided as the previous one, where everyone believed that Ningyu would lose. At the very least, there was a martial artist who favored Ningyu. However, Ningyu also recognized the martial artist who favored Ningyu. It was Zhou Jianming, who had made things difficult for him in front of the Tianyuan restaurant. Seeing Zhang Tianwen's attack, Ningyu's expression changed slightly, and he was somewhat moved. However, it was only a slight change. Zhang Tianwen had not used his full strength in the first exchange, and neither had Ningyu. Buzz buzz! At this moment, Zhang Tianwen arrived in front of Ningyu. His entire body's yuan qi burst out, and he unscrupulously pressed towards Ningyu. After all this time, he wants to compete with me in yuan qi. Feeling the violent yuan qi attacking him, Ningyu was slightly startled. Then he smiled faintly and said, "Compared to other things, you still have a sliver of a chance of winning. But if it's a competition of yuan qi, you have no chance at all." In the next moment, Ningyu's eyes turned cold, and the yuan qi in his sea of consciousness burst out, forming a protective barrier around him. Boom! The two ferocious yuan qis collided, but the victor was not immediately decided. Instead, they began to tangle. "You're only at the late, true martial stage. I don't believe that your yuan qi is thicker than mine." Gritting his teeth, Zhang Tianwen completely poured out all the yuan qi in his sea of consciousness, crazily charging towards Ningyu. In the face of Zhang Tianwen's powerful yuan qi, Ningyu did not seem to care at all, appearing rather calm. What is Ningyu doing? He dares not to use his full strength against Zhang Tianwen. Is he stupid? Ningyu is definitely not stupid. His actions should be because he has a card up his sleeve. A card up his sleeve? That's not possible, after all. The gap between Ningyu and Zhang Tianwen. What the hell? That's impossible. The last martial artist's eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Just as he was about to speak, his eyes widened as a dumbfounded look filled his face. Nearby, waves of extremely berserk yuan qi surged out from Ningyu's sea of consciousness. With the addition of so much yuan qi, Zhang Tianwen's yuan qi did not last long before it was defeated. Underworld Tyrant Palm. After repelling Zhang Tianwen's yuan qi, Ningyu roared in his heart. With a flick of his wrist, he instantly sent out a palm imprint. Netherworld Samsara Palm Fourth Form. Underworld Tyrant Palm. Without the support of powerful yuan qi, Zhang Tianwen's strength dropped by at least 50%. With only 50% of Zhang Tianwen's strength left, Ningyu did not even need to use the Samsara Palm. Just the Underworld Tyrant Palm was enough to defeat him. Not good. Chapter 441. Defeated in one move. I can't believe Ningyu is so powerful that even Zhang Tianwen could not last 3 moves against him. Haven't you noticed? Zhang Tianwen was defeated entirely because of his carelessness. That's right, Zhang Tianwen underestimated the extent of Ningyu's yuan qi. Otherwise, who knows who would have won? A loss is a loss. What's the point of finding so many excuses? I wonder if Ningyu will. What the hell? Shock was revealed on the faces of the martial practitioners in the Tianyuan Tower as they watched the palm continuously attack Zhang Tianwen. However, the most shocking thing was yet to come. Swish! A figure rapidly streaked past, appearing in front of Zhang Tianwen in the blink of an eye. Soon after, the figure waved his hand as a powerful palm appeared in the air. CHCH! The two palms collided and disappeared at practically the same time. It's the first prince. Why did the first prince block that palm for Zhang Tianwen? He has a grudge with Ningyu. The first prince exchanged blows with Ningyu a few days ago in the capital, and even the little dragon sword was no match for Ningyu. Now that he has reached the early primal core stage, he naturally wants to spar with Ningyu. Although that's the case, the first prince's actions are a little unkind. Unkind? The winner is always right. There's nothing much to say. The The Tianyuan Tower martial practitioners were instantly relieved when they discovered that the one who had attacked was the first prince. After all, the first prince had a grudge with Ningyu in the past, so there was nothing wrong with him taking action now. Ningyu, one should forgive and forget. There's no need to be so ruthless, right? After casually blocking Ningyu's underworld tyrant palm, the corners of the first prince's lips curled upwards as he said with a faint smile, "No matter what, you and Zhang Tianwen are both core disciples of Danwu College's Sacred Institute, so you should take care of each other." The first prince's words were dignified, as if Ningyu was trying to kill a fellow disciple. Ningyu's expression was somewhat gloomy. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen someone as shameless as the first prince. "Listen to my advice. The two of you should shake hands and make up." The eldest imperial prince acted as a peacemaker and said, "Humph, shake hands with him? Maybe in your next life." Zhang Tianwen coldly snorted and said, "I was careless just now. If he can defeat me again, I will shake hands with him. You're all students of Danwu College. There's no need to hurt your friendship over such trivial matters." The first prince continued to persuade, "If the two of you stop now, it will become a much-told story in the great Xia kingdom." Zhang Tianwen rolled his eyes and said proudly, "It's not impossible for me to stop here, but Ningyu has to defeat me in alchemy." "Ningyu, look!" The eldest prince turned around and said to Ningyu. The eldest prince and Zhang Tianwen echoed each other and acted very realistically. However, it was a pity that Ningyu had already seen through it. "I'm not interested in competing in alchemy with someone who has already lost to me." Ningyu rejected the eldest imperial prince and headed straight for the third floor. Kaka! After being rejected by Ningyu in front of so many people, the eldest imperial prince felt that he had lost face, and his expression instantly turned gloomy. The eldest imperial prince clenched his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. He said coldly, "Ningyu, don't be so shameless. I'm talking to you nicely because I think highly of you." "Oh, so you think highly of me?" Ningyu stopped in his tracks and said calmly, "If that's the case, then don't think highly of me. Think highly of Zhang Tianwen." With that, Ningyu walked toward the room where Lu Wei and the others were in without turning back. "You're courting death." The eldest imperial prince cursed under his breath and immediately leaped up, charging at Ningyu at an astonishing speed. After advancing to the early primal core stage, the eldest imperial prince's speed had not only increased exponentially, but even the key in his consciousness had increased tremendously. It was only fun to defeat someone in their own field of expertise. This was what the eldest imperial prince thought, and he did exactly that. Whoosh! The eldest imperial prince's fist contained a violent wave of ki, and in the blink of an eye he arrived before Ningyu. Then, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, he viciously punched towards Ningyu's head. It was one thing to not make a move, but the moment he did, it was a killing move. The eldest imperial prince's ki is actually many times denser than Zhang Tianwen's. On the third floor of Tianyuan Tower, Ren Xiangtian felt the majestic ki on the eldest imperial prince's wrist and was slightly moved. He had originally thought that the eldest imperial prince's abilities were only slightly higher than Zhang Tianwen's, but now it seemed that he was wrong. Conservatively speaking, even 3 Zhang Tianwen would not be a match for the eldest imperial prince. It looks like the eldest imperial prince is determined to become the crown prince this time. Zhou Jianming was also somewhat astonished. The eldest imperial prince's attack had most likely overturned the impression he had in many people's hearts. "Ningyu, be careful." When the eldest imperial prince made his move, Feng Zi shouted to warn Ningyu. Ningyu did not seem to sense the approaching danger. He first smiled at Feng Zi, then turned to look at the eldest imperial prince. The next moment, Ningyu did something that shocked everyone. Looking at the fist that was approaching him, he slowly closed his eyes. "What's going on?" Has Ning Yu been scared silly? That shouldn't be the case. With Ning Yu's abilities, he can at least fight the eldest imperial prince. It's impossible for him to be scared silly. Could it be that he knows he's no match for the eldest imperial prince, so he's admitting defeat? Ning Yu's sudden action once again caused a huge uproar in Tianyuan Tower. Many cultivators were extremely shocked. After all, Ning Yu's current appearance was no different from someone who had given up on himself. Do you think I won't attack you just because you're acting stupid? Then you're too not good. Seeing Ning Yu's appearance, the eldest imperial prince laughed coldly. He was just about to say a few harsh words when his expression changed drastically and he immediately retreated. This was because the eldest imperial prince felt that, in that instant, he had lost connection with a sea of consciousness. There was no longer any primordial qi flowing into his wrist. Without the support of primordial qi, how could he possibly defeat Ning Yu in the area that Ning Yu was proficient in? However, it was impossible for Ning Yu to give him the chance. In the instant that the eldest imperial prince retreated, Ning Yu suddenly opened his eyes. Like a cheetah, he appeared in front of the eldest imperial prince in the blink of an eye. Crack! Ning Yu's fist struck out, colliding perfectly with the eldest imperial prince's fist. A crisp crack rang out. Then the eldest imperial prince fell backward like a kite with its string cut. Bang! Uft! As expected, the eldest imperial prince landed heavily on the ground. A metallic taste came from his throat, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Swish! The eldest imperial prince's defeat caused the Tianyuan building to instantly fall silent. Many cultivators looked at the pale-faced cultivator on the ground in shock. They had never imagined that he would be defeated by Ning Yu in a single move. Or had Ning Yu's strength already reached a terrifying level? Even someone as powerful as the eldest imperial prince had been defeated by Ning Yu in a single move. How many cultivators in the vast capital could contend against Ning Yu? Fortunately, I left a wisp of spiritual force in the eldest imperial prince's body back in Wuda City. Otherwise, it would be almost impossible to defeat him in a single move. Ning Yu felt very fortunate that he had left a wisp of spiritual force in the eldest imperial prince's body. Chapter 442. Testing soul power. The eldest prince stood up with difficulty and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He glared at Ning Yu and said viciously, "What did you do to me? Why did I feel dazed for a moment?" "Did you feel dazed just now?" Ning Yu's reaction was a little exaggerated when he heard the eldest prince's words. His eyes widened as he said in shock, "Why didn't I know?" "I know." Immediately, Ning Yu's eyes lit up and he said in a clear voice, "You must have done something you shouldn't have done yesterday. In other words, you've overindulged in your desires." Ning Yu's voice was so loud that even the passers-by on the street stopped and stared at Tianyuan Tower, wanting to see what was going on inside. Uft! As for the many cultivators in Tianyuan Tower, they could not help but laugh. The more he indulged in lust, the more he could think. Damn it! The eldest prince's face was livid. He wanted nothing more than to kill Ning Yu immediately. "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Ning Yu shrugged and walked towards the third floor. The eldest prince trembled with anger as he watched Ning Yu's back, but there was nothing he could do. He had not lost his rationality. Before he understood why he had lost contact with his sea of consciousness, he did not dare to act rashly. Ning Yu was very fast and arrived outside the room where Lu Wei and the others were in no time. However, Ning Yu did not enter the room immediately. Instead, he stopped in front of the door. "Ning Yu, why aren't you going in?" Feng Zi asked in confusion when he saw Ning Yu stop. "There's a Yin-Yang realm cultivator inside," Ning Yu said solemnly. Ning Yu was very shocked because he had only discovered a Yin-Yang realm cultivator when he arrived at the room. In other words, the Yin-Yang realm cultivator in the room had a very unique method of concealing his aura. Yin-Yang realm cultivator? Feng Zi's heart went cold when he heard this, and he hurriedly displayed his perception. After a while, Feng Zi retracted his perception, and a serious expression appeared on his face. Ning Yu stepped back. I'll open the door. After pondering for a moment, Feng Zi said, If I encounter any danger, leave immediately. What kind of joke is this? The cultivator inside is at the peak of the initial Yin-Yang realm. With your strength, if you don't use your trump card, you won't even be able to last one move against him. Shaking his head, Ning Yu took a step forward and arrived at the door. Unrelated people, leave immediately. However, before Ning Yu's hand could touch the door, a berating voice rang out from inside. Senior, I am acquainted with the cultivator inside. May I know if it is possible to open the door? Ning Yu frowned slightly. However, he did not barge in. Instead, he asked, It's Ning Yu. Inside the room, when Lu Wei heard Ning Yu's voice, her face lit up with joy as she shouted, Don't make a fuss. I also know it's Ning Yu. Xiao Yu was much calmer, but her face also revealed a look of surprise. It seems like he won't let Ning Yu in. Sikong Ling pointed at the Yin-Yang realm cultivator in front of the door and said in a low voice, If you don't speak, no one will think you're mute. Xiao Yu said angrily, If you have the ability, chase the door god away. All right, pretend I didn't say anything. Helpless, Sikong Ling could only choose to shut up. Actually, Sikong Ling was right. The Yin-Yang realm cultivator's tone was a little cold as he shouted, Unrelated people, leave immediately. Without the Emperor's written order, I won't open the door. The Emperor's written order? Outside the room, Ning Yu had a puzzled look on his face. Could it be that he needed the Emperor's permission to meet with Lu Wei and the others? Thinking of this, Ning Yu's face became very ugly. Thinking of this, the Emperor had clearly grasped his weakness. Where is the Emperor? Taking a deep breath, Ning Yu said in a deep voice, Impudent. Where is the Emperor? Is that something you can ask? The Yin-Yang realm cultivator in the room said coldly, If you know what's good for you, leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. What if I insist on going in? Ning Yu's tone also became cold as he said. Ning Yu was very clear that the Emperor invited Lu Wei and the others over to force him to come over. There was no reason to not let him see Lu Wei after coming here. There was most likely only one purpose for the Emperor to do this. That was to test his true strength. First, it was Elder Tan, then Zhou Jianming, followed by Zhang Tianwen, the eldest prince. These cultivators did not defeat him, so it was very likely that the Yin-Yang realm cultivators would make a move next. If I didn't guess wrongly, the Emperor should also be in Tianyuan Tower. Ning Yu's brows were tightly knitted as his gaze slowly swept across every room on the third floor. Subsequently, Ning Yu shifted his gaze from the third floor to the fourth floor. Tianyuan Tower had a total of 4 floors. The first 3 floors had more rooms, but when it came to the fourth floor, there were only 3 rooms. Ning Yu's gaze paused on the first 2 rooms for a second and the last room for 2 seconds. He discovered me. There were a total of 2 people in the last room, a middle-aged man and an old man. If Ning Yu was here, he would definitely discover that he knew the old man. It was Elder Tan who sparred with him not long ago. The middle-aged man's brows slightly raised as he said indifferently, Elder Tan, the protective barrier you set up doesn't seem to be very effective. Elder Tan looked a little awkward. I'm not blaming you. After all, Ning Yu is very strong. It's understandable that he could see through your protective barrier. The middle-aged man waved his hand, indicating for Elder Tan to not mind. Tell Yanbin to test Ning Yu's soul force. I want to know the exact strength of Ning Yu's soul force. Yes, Elder Tan responded before taking out a crystal ball and engraving a few lines of words on it. At the same time, in a room on the 3rd floor of Tianyuan Tower, Lianbin touched his chest and nodded his head slightly. Creak! In the next moment, Lien Bin opened the door. However, when Lu Wei and the rest wanted to come out, Lien Bin once again slammed the door shut. Ningyu, if you can withstand the pressure of my soul force, I'll let you enter the room, Lien Bin said emotionlessly. Withstand the pressure of your soul force. Ning Yu was slightly stunned before he looked at the Yin-Yang stage martial artist before him. The strength of an early stage, 6th grade soul force. Realizing that the martial artist before him only had an early stage, 6th grade soul force, Ning Yu was slightly relieved. An early stage, 6th grade soul force couldn't force him to use all his soul force. I can withstand the pressure of your soul force. But before that, I have a question for you. Ning Yu opened his mouth, and a soft voice rang in Lien Bin's ears. Is His Majesty in Tianyuan Tower? Lien Bin's expression changed slightly when he heard the voice, and he couldn't help but regard Ning Yu more highly. Ning Yu had just used a spiritual voice transmission. Chapter 443. Lien Bin, Ning Yu, don't you think you're asking too much? Lien Bin did not answer Ning Yu's question. Instead, he said coldly, as long as you can withstand my soul force pressure, then everything is negotiable. If you can't, then I can only apologize to you and invite you out of Tianyuan Tower. How long you resist is considered a success. Ning Yu did not beat around the bush and asked directly, do you want to endure for 10 minutes or half an hour? You sure talk big. As long as you can endure for 3 minutes, I'll consider it your win. As soon as the word win was said, Lien Bin's body trembled. Then, all his soul force gushed out and pressed down on Ning Yu without restraint. Lien Bin's soul force had reached the early stage of 6th grade. The method he used to test Ning Yu's soul force was very simple. If Ning Yu could endure for a minute, it meant that Ning Yu's soul force had reached the early stage of 5th grade. If he could endure for 2 minutes, it meant that his soul force had reached the middle stage of 5th grade. If he could endure for 3 minutes, it meant that his soul force had reached the late stage of 5th grade. As for lasting for more than 3 minutes, Lien Bin did not think about it, because a martial artist who could endure for more than 3 minutes under his soul force pressure must have reached the peak of 5th grade at the very least. Ning Yu was so young. In Lien Bin's opinion, it was impossible for his soul force to reach the peak of 5th grade. Soul force of 6th grade, facing the soul force that was pressing down on him. Ning Yu's expression did not change. His soul force gushed out and formed a soul force shield in front of him. Chi. Lien Bin's soul force met the shield and stopped on the spot, unable to move forward. Break! Lien Bin shouted in a low voice, controlling his soul force to crazily smash into Ning Yu's soul force protection shield. However, Ning Yu's soul force shield was unusually strong. No matter how Lien Bin attacked, it did not budge at all. In the blink of an eye, 1 minute passed. Ning Yu stood on the spot. The soul force shield in front of him was very strong. Not even a crack appeared. 2 minutes passed. Ning Yu crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at Lien Bin with interest. Could it be that his soul power has reached the late stage of 5th grade? As time passed, Lien Bin's expression became more and more solemn, but he could still maintain his composure. Voila! However, when the 3rd minute passed, Lien Bin's expression finally changed, and an incredulous look appeared on his face. Ning Yu was able to withstand the pressure of his soul power for 3 minutes, which meant that Ning Yu's soul power had probably reached the peak of level 5. At such a young age, the strength of his soul energy had already reached peak rank 5. This talent was truly terrifying. Even Dan Qinzi, the great Xia Kingdom's Dan Qinzi, when he was at Ning Yu's age, his soul force hadn't reached the peak of the 5th grade. His Majesty wants me to test the true strength of Ning Yu's soul. Since that's the case, I want to see how long Ning Yu can last. Lien Bin gritted his teeth. Pardon me for asking." At this moment, Ning Yu's voice slowly rang out. "I've already endured for 3 minutes. Does that count as my win?" Lien Bin was slightly stunned, and an awkward expression appeared on his face. He did say that as long as Ning Yu could last for 3 minutes, it would count as Ning Yu's win. Right now, he was completely breaking his promise. "Ning Yu, you asked me a question just now. If you can last for 10 minutes under the pressure of my soul power, I can tell you if His Majesty is in the Tianyuan restaurant." Lien Bin's expression was a little ugly as he said in a low voice, "I don't care. 10 minutes it is. It doesn't affect me much." Ning Yu shrugged, looking indifferent. Shameless boasting. With a cold snort, not only did Lien Bin unleash all the soul power in his body, he even used his Yuan Qi. Combining Yuan Qi and soul power, he strived to break through Ning Yu's soul power barrier as soon as possible. He's even unleashing his Yuan Qi. Ning Yu's perception was very strong, and he had sensed something the moment Lien Bin unleashed his Yuan Qi. However, Ning Yu was least afraid of the pressure of Yuan Qi. With the Yuan Qi in his 4 illusory golden cores, even Lien Bin, who is at the peak of early-stage yin-yang realm, might not be able to get the upper hand. Therefore, when Lien Bin unleashed his Yuan Qi, the Yuan Qi in Ning Yu's sea of consciousness quietly surged and entered the soul power barrier in front of him through his palm. As both of them had used their Yuan Qi and soul power, Ning Yu and Lien Bin were in a deadlock for a moment. "I didn't expect Ning Yu's soul power to be so strong," Ren Xiangtian said solemnly as he locked his gaze on Ning Yu on the 3rd floor of the Tianyuan restaurant. Ren Xiangtian was a peerless genius in the alchemy union, and the strength of his soul power was very strong. Naturally, he could sense the strength of Lien Bin's early-stage, 6th-grade soul power. Although Ning Yu's soul power was a little vague, Ren Xiangtian could basically determine that Ning Yu's soul power was very strong. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to last so long under the pressure of Lien Bin's powerful soul power. "Old Tan, you seem to have mentioned that Ning Yu's Yuan Qi is abnormally vigorous," the middle-aged man on the 4th floor of the Tianyuan restaurant said indifferently. On the 4th floor of the Tianyuan tower, the middle-aged man said indifferently, now that his soul force is so powerful, he's the best candidate for the royal family selection. "Your Majesty, didn't you say that you want Ning Yu and the 3rd prince to go together?" Old Tan frowned. I'm just saying. Don't take it seriously." Before Old Tan could finish his sentence, the middle-aged man waved his hand and smiled. "It's very difficult for Lien Bin to test the strength of Ning Yu's soul power. Go and prepare. We'll start the selection in half an hour." "Understood." Nodding his head, Old Tan slowly left the room. Don't. After Old Tan left, the middle-aged man rapped his fingers on the table and murmured, "Why isn't such a genius born in the royal family? Instead, Dongwu College beat us to it." At the same time, in front of Lu Wei's room on the 3rd floor of Tianyuan Tower, Lien Bin's expression was extremely ugly. Even if he executed his primordial qi, he couldn't break Ning Yu's soul power barrier. On the contrary, Ning Yu seemed to be about to counterattack. Fortunately, 10 minutes passed just as Ning Yu was about to counterattack. Lien Bin's expression was extremely helpless. Left with no choice, he could only withdraw his soul power and primordial qi back into his body. Sensing Lien Bin withdrawing his soul power and primordial qi, Ning Yu let out a long sigh of relief. His tense nerves relaxed a little. 10 minutes have passed. Ning Yu stared at Lien Bin. His meaning was self-evident. "All right, I'll tell you." Lien Bin was extremely unwilling, but he still whispered in Ning Yu's ear, "His Majesty is on the 4th floor of Tianyuan Tower." Shua. After saying that, Lien Bin's figure flashed and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Looking at Lien Bin's disappearing figure, Ning Yu took a step forward and pushed the door with both hands. "It's indeed as I guessed. He should be in the 3rd room on the 4th floor." Creak. In the next instant, the door was pushed open. Ningyu, I knew that you would be able to chase away that door god. Ningyu, it's great that you could come. Chapter 444. The Yuan Room 3 voices sounded in Ning Yu's ears the moment he opened the door. No need to think, it was Xigongling, Lu Wei, and Xiaoyu. Speak inside. Ning Yu did not linger in front of the door, but walked into the room. As for Feng Zi, he followed closely behind Ning Yu, closing the door behind him. After entering the room, Ning Yu got straight to the point, asking, "Why are you guys at the Tianyuan Tower? Who brought you here?" "It's that door god just now." Xiaoyu was the first to speak. "A day ago we were all at Xigongling's house, but who would have thought that door god would directly barge in and bring the three of us to the Tianyuan Tower?" Door god? That yin-yang stage, early stage martial artist. Ningyu was first taken aback, then said, "His strength is not weak. The three of you definitely can't stop him." "Ningyu, this is all my fault. I couldn't." Xigongling said somewhat awkwardly, "This is not your fault." Ningyu interrupted Xigongling's words, asking, "Do you know why that martial artist brought you to the Tianyuan Tower?" "I'm not sure about this." Xigongling shook his head, saying, "After we came to the Tianyuan Tower, this room has not been opened. Until you came." "Is that so?" Ningyu's brows knitted tightly, falling into contemplation. Logically speaking, the Emperor definitely had a purpose for inviting Xigongling and the rest to the Tianyuan Tower, and it was most likely for him. However, there was one point that Ningyu was very puzzled about. If it was just to lure him, the Emperor did not need to go through so much trouble. From this, it could be seen that the Emperor must have another purpose. Thinking up to here, Ningyu's expression was somewhat solemn, saying in a deep voice, "Lu Wei, after returning to the capital, did you return to Snow Domain Pavilion?" Snow Domain Pavilion has long been occupied by a mysterious force. How could I let Lu Wei return? Before Lu Wei could speak, Xiaoyu said with mild anger, Back when Danwu College was recruiting students, Ningyu had witnessed Xiaoyu's shrewdness. Compared to when she was at her peak, Xiaoyu was obviously much more restrained. "After we leave the Tianyuan Tower, you should go to the Sacred Institute of Danwu College for a few days. I'll go to the Snow Pavilion to explore." After a brief pause, Ningyu said, "No matter how powerful His Majesty is, it's impossible for him to go to the Sacred Institute of Danwu College to capture people." "Ningyu, I want to go with you." Hearing Ningyu's words, Lu Wei hurriedly said, "This time, I'm only going to scout around. I might run into danger. You go to Danwu College with Xiaoyu and the others first." Ningyu's tone was unquestionable as he said, "I'll come back to you after I'm done scouting around." "All right." Lu Wei pouted and said helplessly. Although Lu Wei's cultivation was not high, her IQ was not low. She knew that Ningyu was doing this for her own good. After all, her cultivation was only at the Xiantian realm. If she went to the Snow Pavilion with Ningyu, she would not be of any help at all. She would only cause trouble. "Right, I don't seem to have seen the sixth prince, Oyangyuan, in the Tianyuan Tower. Do you know where he went?" Suddenly, Ningyu seemed to have thought of something and asked. The Tianyuan Tower was the sixth prince's property. There was no reason for him not to be there. His Majesty has given the sixth prince and the third prince a mission. Xigongling obviously knew where the sixth prince went. He explained, "Recently, 2 peak 5th rank demonic beasts appeared in the Imperial hunting ground. Their strength is comparable to a half-step yin-yang realm martial artist. His Majesty has sent them to hunt the demonic beasts. Whoever completes the mission first can make a request to him at this banquet. As long as the request is not too excessive, he can agree to it unconditionally." Hearing this, Ningyu's heart shuddered. Hunt a peak 5th rank demonic beast and agree to a request unconditionally? The current emperor was too bold. One must know that the first prince did not participate in this. Could the emperor be sending a message to the outside world to make the first prince the crown prince? Thinking of this, Ningyu's face turned slightly ugly. He and the first prince were mortal enemies. If the first prince became the crown prince and successfully ascended to the throne as the emperor, he would suffer a disaster. Swoosh! Swoosh! Suddenly, two figures dashed out from the Tianyuan Tower and landed in the lobby in the blink of an eye. Bang! As soon as the two figures appeared, they instantly exchanged blows. However, they separated as soon as they came into contact, standing on both sides of the lobby. The sixth prince and the third prince are back at the same time. At the same time? Didn't you notice that the sixth prince is slightly faster than the third prince by a second? Is 1 second fast? At best, they can only be considered to be on par. The two figures were none other than the third prince and the sixth prince. At this moment, they were holding a demonic beast's head in their hands. When the two demonic beasts were alive, they were clearly peak, 5th rank, demonic beasts with strength comparable to half-step yin-yang realm. Third brother, how about you win this time? The sixth prince, Ouyang Yuan, raised his brows and said indifferently, "You can make a request in front of father later." Humph. If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. I, Ouyang Hai, can afford to lose. The third prince, Ouyang Hai, coldly snorted. Hee, since third brother is so modest, it would be impolite of me to refuse. Ouyang Yuan laughed. Sixth brother, you are only at the peak of the true martial realm. To be able to kill a peak 5th rank demonic beast, you must have used a lot of trump cards, right? Ouyang Hai said with a sinister smile. Ouyang Yuan was only at the peak of the true martial realm. With his strength, it would be difficult for him to defeat a peak 5th rank demonic beast, let alone kill one. You're not much better off. You used up a lot of the trump cards you prepared to go to West Mountain City to kill a peak 5th rank demonic beast. Ouyang Hai coldly said, "Be careful when you go to West Mountain City tomorrow. Don't encounter bandits and get killed. I don't need your concern when I go to West Mountain City. You should worry about your own matters." Ouyang Hai said in a dark voice, "Once I leave the capital, Big Brother will definitely not let me off. Third brother, isn't it a little unkind to speak ill of me behind my back?" Before Ouyang Hai's voice faded, a figure slowly walked down from the 3rd floor. The figure stopped in front of Ouyang Hai and stared at him as he said with a smile, "It is a joyous occasion that you and sixth brother succeeded in killing demonic beasts. Don't ruin the harmony because of this. Big brother, don't say it without feeling pain." Seeing the first prince appear, Ouyang Hai's tone was cold as he said, "If I am not wrong, Ningyu should have already arrived at Tianyuan restaurant. I wonder if you have sparred with him?" At the mention of Ningyu, the first prince's face instantly darkened. Ouyang Hai was really touching a sore spot. He had just been defeated by Ningyu, and Ouyang Hai was already mocking him. It was true that an aunt could endure, but an uncle could not. Cough, cough. At this moment, 2 dry coughs rang out from the 4th floor of Tianyuan restaurant. Soon after, an old man slowly appeared in everyone's line of sight. This old man was Old Tan. Old Tan's gaze first scanned the entire Tianyuan restaurant before he said in a clear voice, "All martial artists that I personally invite are to go to the 2nd Yuan room." Chapter 445. 2 types of tests crash. As Elder Tan's voice fell, the Tianyuan Tower became noisy. All the martial artists, personally invited by Elder Tan, left their rooms and headed for the 2nd Yuan room on the 4th floor. The martial artists invited by Elder Tan were at least at the early Yuan core stage. Any one of them was a well-known figure in the capital. Of course, Ningyu, a late-stage true martial realm martial artist, was an exception. As for the rest of the martial artists, they headed for the 3rd Yuan room. "Lu Wei, you guys weren't invited by Elder Tan, right?" Ningyu paced up and down in the room while a wisp of a solemn expression appeared on his face. He said, With your strengths, you might encounter danger even if you go to room 3. Just now, Ningyu had quietly released his perception and discovered that the martial artists who entered the third Yuan room were mostly at the peak of the true martial realm, and there were even a few who had reached the early Yuan core stage. Although Si Kongling and Xiao Yu had entered Danwu College's Sacred Institute and were genius martial artists, which martial artist invited by the emperor to the Tianyuan Tower was weak. After pondering for a moment, Ningyu said, "Feng Zi, you go with Si Kongling and the others to the third Yuan room. You must ensure their safety." Feng Zi's strength was not weak. Ningyu felt more at ease letting Feng Zi protect Si Kongling and the others. Nodding, Feng Zi said, "No problem. As long as I'm here, I guarantee they won't encounter danger." "You?" Hearing Feng Zi's words, Xiao Yu's eyebrows twitched in disbelief. In the next instant, Xiao Yu's figure flashed, and a fist carried a violent gust of wind as it rumbled towards Feng Zi. Bang! Facing such a swift and fierce attack from Xiao Yu, Feng Zi stood in place without moving. He raised his right hand and unavoidably collided with Xiao Yu's fist. After one move, Feng Zi still stood in place without moving. On the other hand, Xiao Yu retreated to the edge of the room before stabilizing her figure. Being at a disadvantage, Xiao Yu's face was filled with indignation. However, just when she wanted to make another move, Ningyu's voice resounded, "Don't make a fuss. This matter is settled. Feng Zi will go with all of you to the third Yuan room." Creak. Then Ningyu pushed open the door and walked out. "By the way, don't act rashly if you encounter any problems. Listen to Feng Zi's arrangements for everything." As soon as he stepped out of the door, Ningyu stopped and turned around. "Remember this, I won't offend those who don't offend me, but if someone offends me—" At this point, Ningyu paused for a moment and then said coldly, "If you can win, then fight. If you can't, then call me." After saying this, Ningyu left the room without looking back, leaving behind a dumbfounded Si Kongling and the others. Ningyu was too arrogant. If he could win, then fight. If he couldn't, then call him. A thought suddenly arose in the minds of Si Kongling and the others. If Ningyu couldn't win, then he would probably run. If Ningyu knew what Si Kongling and the others were thinking, he would definitely be very comforted. If he couldn't win and didn't run, wouldn't that be seeking his own death? There were a total of 3 rooms on the 4th floor of Tianyuan Restaurant. They were the 3rd Yuan room, the 2nd Yuan room, and the 1st Yuan room. Before long, Ningyu arrived at the door of the 2nd Yuan room. Ningyu didn't hesitate and directly entered the room. Entering the room, Ningyu discovered that there were a total of 3 or 4 martial artists inside. Their cultivation ranged from the early to the late Yuan core stage. There was even a peak Yuan core martial artist. Due to Ningyu's earlier strong performance, these martial artists all smiled at Ningyu when they saw Ningyu enter. Of course, the peak Yuan core martial artist expression was indifferent, and he didn't even bat an eyelid. Ningyu didn't mind. He found a random chair and sat down, closing his eyes to rest. Swish, swish. Not long after Ningyu sat down, 2 figures flashed by and entered the room. After these, 2 ancient martial art practitioners entered. Even the peak primal core ancient martial art practitioner could not help but raise his head to take a look, but very quickly looked away. Because these 2 martial artists were the 3rd prince, Ouyang Hai, and the 6th prince, Ouyang Yuan. Subsequently, the eldest prince, Zhang Tianwen, and the first young master of the black market, Zhou Jianming, all entered the room. Swish! Following that, Ren Xiangtian entered the room. Seeing Ren Xiangtian, the peak Yuan core martial artist in the room, couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, and his lips curled into an evil smile. "Ningyu, I heard that you're from the Tianxian City Alchemy Union and will be representing them in the alchemy competition this time." Ren Xiangtian's gaze swept across the room and finally landed on Ningyu. Moving his feet, Rin Xiangtian came to stand in front of Ningyu and said, "There are still 7 to 8 days until the alchemy competition. I look forward to fighting with you then." "You are." Ningyu frowned slightly and asked doubtfully, "I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Rin Xiangtian, and I'm from the capital's Alchemy Union," Ran Xiangtian said as he slapped his forehead. "We'll talk about it when the time comes. If there are no accidents, I will definitely participate in the alchemy competition," Ningyu said lightly. "Ha ha ha." Just then, a loud laugh sounded from outside the door. The person had not arrived, but the voice came first. Old Tan. The martial artist who entered the room was Old Tan. "All of you must be wondering why His Majesty has summoned all of you to the Tianyuan. After laughing, Old Tan said in a clear voice, "His Majesty wants to choose 2 martial artists among you. Whoever is chosen can enter the Ice Manor unconditionally to cultivate for a day and night." Swish! Hearing Old Tan's words, the martial artists in the room were still rather rational and did not show any particular impulsive behavior. However, everyone had a trace of solemnity on their faces. In the Great Xia Kingdom, there were 3 sacred cultivation grounds, and the Ice Manor was one of them. It was already extremely difficult for the prodigies of the imperial family to enter the Ice Manor to cultivate for 2 hours, not to mention cultivating for a day and night. Very well. I won't say anything unnecessary. Next, I'll introduce some of the rules of the test. Old Tan was very satisfied with everyone's reaction and continued, "The test is divided into 2 aspects, the martial arts test and the alchemy test." "Old Tan, what is the martial arts test and what is the alchemy test?" the first prince asked. Old Tan smiled and said, "The so-called martial arts test is where you fight in pairs. Whoever can fight to the end will be the final winner. As for the alchemy test, it is naturally a competition of alchemy." Old Tan continued, "You can choose the martial arts test or the alchemy test. You can even choose both, but the prerequisite is that you have the ability." "Do I have to participate in these 2 tests?" Ningyu frowned slightly and said without batting an eyelid, "If I don't participate in either test, will there be any impact?" "Don't participate in either test?" Old Tan was slightly startled. It was obvious that he was very doubtful about this request of Ningyu. The winner could unconditionally enter the cold ice mansion to cultivate for a day and a night. Ningyu was currently in the late stage of the true martial realm, but if he cultivated in the cold ice mansion for a day, he could even reach the peak of the true martial realm. What was he thinking? Why didn't he want to participate in the test? Chapter 446. Competing in Alchemy. Ning-Yu glanced at Zhang Tianwen from the corner of his eye and ignored him. Instead, he nodded at Elder Tan and said, "Whether it's the martial arts assessment or the alchemy assessment, I don't want to participate." "I'm afraid you can't. This assessment was personally requested by His Majesty. If you don't agree, you'll be committing the crime of deceiving the Emperor." Elder Tan frowned and said, "You've already angered His Majesty by not being in the capital previously. If you choose to withdraw this time, the consequences will be obvious." "That's right. If it wasn't for His Majesty's magnanimity, he would have wiped out your entire family," Zhang Tianwen echoed. "Zhang Tianwen, can I ask you a question?" Suddenly, Ningyu came before Zhang Tianwen and asked. Zhang Tianwen was stunned, not knowing what Ningyu was up to. "What question?" Although Zhang Tianwen was puzzled, he still asked. "Are you stupid?" Ningyu shrugged and said indifferently, "What?" When Ningyu said that, Zhang Tianwen's eyes widened and his face was filled with disbelief. Very quickly, his face darkened completely. Ningyu called him a fool in front of so many people. It was obvious that he was not giving him face and did not take him seriously. "Ningyu, I want to challenge you," Zhang Tianwen said angrily. However, Zhang Tianwen recalled how he was defeated by Ningyu and quickly changed the topic. "I'm challenging you in alchemy." Do you dare to accept it? Competing in alchemy? Ningyu raised his brows and then raised his right hand. He shook his index finger and said, "You're still lacking. You're not qualified. Ningyu, you're too arrogant. Zhang Tianwen is a mid-stage, 5th grade alchemy master. How dare you say that he's not qualified?" At this moment, the eldest prince said in a deep voice, "You're the one who's not qualified, right? I don't need you to judge whether I'm qualified or not. If you're not convinced, you can give it a try." Ningyu rolled his eyes and instantly changed his mind. He said, "I can accept this challenge, but I have a request." "What request?" Zhang Tianwen asked in a deep voice. "It's very simple. If I defeat you in alchemy, you and the first prince will have to leave the Heaven Yuan building," Ningyu said without batting an eyelid. The first prince was a strong contender for the position of crown prince. If he performed well this time, then the 6th prince would lose his chance. As the saying goes, the enemy of an enemy is a friend. Moreover, Ningyu and Yangyuan's relationship was not very bad. It would not be wrong to help Yangyuan at this time. As expected, when Ningyu said this, Yangyuan quietly nodded at Ningyu, his meaning self-evident. This, Ningyu's request, was a little special, and Zhang Tianwen could not decide on his own. For a moment he was in a dilemma, and shifted his gaze to the first prince. The first prince's expression was somewhat ugly. Although he thought highly of Zhang Tianwen, a horse would stumble as well. If Zhang Tianwen lost, would he really have to leave the Heaven Yuan building? Perhaps sensing the first prince's worry, Ningyu continued, "First prince, if you're afraid that Zhang Tianwen will lose to me, you can also personally take part." "Me too?" The first prince frowned. "That's right. I will refine 2 furnaces of pills, while you and Zhang Tianwen will each refine 1 furnace. As long as the 2 of you succeed before me, it will be your victory," Ningyu explained. "On the contrary, if I refine 2 furnaces of pills before the 2 of you, then regretfully, I'll have to ask you to leave the Heaven Yuan building." Shameless boasting. Arrogant. The first prince and Zhang Tianwen berated the moment Ningyu's words rang out. Even Old Tan and Rin Xiangtian felt that Ningyu was very arrogant. In the second Yuan room, only one person saw Ningyu in a different light and felt that Ningyu had the ability to do so. This person was the peak primal core martial artist. He lifted his head to look at Ningyu and mumbled, "His soul energy is very strong, even comparable to mine. What an interesting kid. Why, are you guys afraid now?" Ningyu pursed his lips and said lightly, "Don't boast in the future, lest others look down on you." "Humph. Who says we don't dare? Today, I'd like to see if you have the right to be arrogant." The first prince snorted and said, "What kind of pills do you want to refine? 4th grade pills or 5th grade pills? I don't care. Your soul energy is only at the beginning stage of 4th grade. In my opinion, you should refine 4th grade pills," Ningyu said. "All right, let's refine the true martial pill." The first prince turned to Old Tan and said, "Old Tan, we want to refine the true martial pill, please." "Wait a moment, I'll go prepare the herbs." Old Tan interrupted the first prince, and his palm tore through the air and disappeared instantly. A moment later, Old Tan returned to the room with a storage bag in his hand. Swish, 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 swish. Old Tan flicked his wrist, and 4 sets of herbs appeared on the table. "These are 4 sets of herbs for refining the true martial pill. You guys will refine the pill here, and I'll be the judge." Old Tan said in a clear voice, "Get ready first. We'll start refining the true martial pill in 5 minutes." Zhang Tianwen glared fiercely at Ningyu, then reached into his robe and took out a white pill furnace. Whoosh! The moment Zhang Tianwen took out the white cauldron, the martial artists in the second Yuan room all looked shocked. White demon cauldron. Zhang Tianwen has a white demon cauldron. This is unbelievable. The White Demon Cauldron is ranked 55th on the Earth list of cauldrons. It's extremely precious. With Zhang Tianwen's status as a 5th grade alchemist and the White Demon Cauldron, he'll be able to refine the true martial pill in 15 minutes at most. The envious comments from the surrounding martial artists made Zhang Tianwen raise his eyebrows and look at Ningyu. However, when he saw that Ningyu didn't even look at him, he scoffed and picked up a set of herbs on the table, preparing to refine the pill. On the other side, the first prince flicked his sleeve and a small cauldron appeared in his hand. Then he slowly injected his soul power into the cauldron. As he injected his soul power, the cauldron gradually grew until it was the same size as Zhang Tianwen's White Demon Cauldron. Scorpion Cauldron. Looking at the cauldron in the first prince's hand, the martial artists in the rooms were shocked again. This time, even the martial arts practitioners at the peak of the primal core stage were shocked. The Scorpion Cauldron was ranked 30th on the list of cauldrons. Although the first prince's soul power was only at the beginning stage of 4th grade, with the Scorpion Cauldron, he might even be able to refine the true martial pill before Zhang Tianwen. Whoosh! Just like Zhang Tianwen, the first prince picked up a set of herbs on the table and retreated to the side. Zhang Tianwen and the first prince both took out their cauldrons, and the crowd turned their attention to Ningyu, wanting to see what grade Ningyu's cauldron was. After all, Ningyu had spoken arrogantly, so his cauldron should also be on the list of cauldrons, right? Ningyu ignored the gazes from the surrounding cultivators and walked over to the 6th prince, Ouyang Yuan. As soon as Ningyu opened his mouth, the surrounding martial artists were dumbfounded. Chapter 447. Everyone is shocked. 6th prince, please lend me an alchemy cauldron. As soon as Ningyu said this, everyone in VIP Booth 2, including Elder Tan and the Peak Primal Core Warrior, had their mouths agape. Their eyes were filled with incredulity. How come, Ning, you didn't even have an alchemy cauldron? What was the difference between an alchemist without an alchemy cauldron and a swordsman without a sword? Ha ha ha! Zhang Tianwen was the first to lose it. He guffawed and said, "You don't even have an alchemy cauldron, and you're dreaming of making the true martial pill? If you know what's good for you, you'd better admit defeat before you lose." Zhang Tianwen, remember not to underestimate anyone. The eldest prince was much calmer. He waved at Zhang Tianwen and said, "Who knows, he might be able to make the true martial pill without an alchemy cauldron." Yes. Zhang Tianwen's reaction was a little exaggerated. He smiled and said, "Don't underestimate anyone. What is Ningyu up to?" Other than the eldest prince and Zhang Tianwen, Rin Xiangtian was also puzzled. Without an alchemy cauldron, the speed of making the true martial pill will drop by at least 30%. As the genius of the alchemy union, Ren Xiangtian knew the importance of having an alchemy cauldron. It could be said that if he changed his alchemy cauldron to make the true martial pill, his speed would drop as well. Borrowing an alchemy cauldron? Haha, what an interesting kid. The Peak Primal Core Warrior smiled and said, "I'm looking forward to sparring with you now, whether it's alchemy or martial arts. 6th prince, don't you have an alchemy cauldron?" Ignoring the crowd, Ningyu extended his hand and waved it in front of Ouyang Yuan. "That's a shame. I don't have an alchemy cauldron, so I'll have to borrow one from someone else." "Yes, I have an alchemy cauldron." Ouyang Yuan returned to his senses and hurriedly took out a palm-sized cauldron and handed it to Ningyu, saying, "This cauldron is only the 110th cauldron on the ranking of young masters. Is it all right?" In fact, it wasn't that Ouyang Yuan didn't want to lend his personal pill furnace to Ningyu. It was because his personal pill furnace had a soul imprint engraved on it. Unless the imprint was removed, Ningyu wouldn't be able to use it. Fortunately, he had a pill furnace that was ranked 110 on the human list. Otherwise, he really didn't know what to do. "No problem, any pill furnace will do." Taking the cauldron from Ouyang Yuan's hands, Ningyu thanked him before walking to the table and picking up the remaining 2 sets of medicinal ingredients. Old Tan had mentioned that they had 5 minutes to prepare before refining the pill. These 5 minutes were dispensable to Ningyu. He didn't care and wasn't prepared. You're not even preparing? Isn't he a little too arrogant? Hee hee, I wonder what expression Ningyu will have when he fails. Of course, it's definitely the color of pig liver. Cough, cough. At this moment, Old Tin coughed and said, 5 minutes have passed. Next, you guys can start refining the true martial pill. Swoosh. As soon as Old Tan's voice fell, Zhang Tianwen immediately threw the white fiend pill furnace into the air, and a red flame appeared on his left hand. Red patterned flame. Zhang Tianwen actually has the red patterned flame. That's a flame ranked 420th on the Mystic Flame list. With the red patterned flame and the white fiend pill furnace combined with Zhang Tianwen's 5th grade mid-stage soul force, I guess he can refine the true martial pill in 10 minutes. 10 minutes? In my opinion, 9 minutes at most. The shock that Zhang Tianwen gave everyone was really one after another. First was the white fiend pill furnace, ranked 55th on the Earth list. Then he took out the red patterned flame, ranked 420th on the Mystic Flame list. Putting everything else aside in terms of equipment, Zhang Tianwen had already completely defeated Ningyu. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Zhang Tianwen controlled the red patterned flame to continuously burn the bottom of the white fiend pill furnace. At the same time, he grabbed a medicinal pill with his right hand and carefully placed it into the pill furnace. Chi-chi. In just 10 seconds, Zhang Tianwen had successfully refined the medicinal pill. Swoosh. On the other side, the eldest prince threw the scorpion pill furnace above his head, and a red flame appeared on his left hand. Seeing the red flame in the eldest prince's hand, the surrounding martial artists revealed a shocked expression again. Red scorpion flame. I didn't expect the eldest prince to really have the red scorpion flame. That's a flame ranked 350th on the Mystic Flame list. The red scorpion flame and the scorpion pill furnace are one. Using the two together will yield twice the result with half the effort. Although the eldest prince's soul force is relatively low, with the red scorpion flame and the scorpion pill furnace, he will only need 8 minutes at most to refine the true martial pill. The shock that the eldest prince gave the surrounding martial artists was even more intense than Zhang Tianwen's. Whether it was the red scorpion flame or the scorpion pill furnace, they were both priceless treasures. At the very least, ordinary 6th grade alchemists didn't have these things. The eldest prince raised his eyebrows and smiled at Ningyu. He then grabbed a medicinal ingredient and threw it into the pill furnace, starting to refine the true martial pill. Zhang Tianwen and the eldest prince started to refine the true martial pill, but Ningyu acted as if nothing had happened and started to inspect the pill furnace that Ouyang Yuan had given him. Although Ningyu said that any pill furnace was fine, the prerequisite was that he had to have a good understanding of pill furnaces. After all, there were only 2 sets of medicinal ingredients. If one of the furnaces failed, it would be a huge embarrassment. You would never allow such a thing to happen. Therefore, he carefully inspected the pill furnace. 3 minutes later, Ningyu withdrew his soul force from the pill furnace and nodded slightly. A pill furnace ranked 110 on the ranking list of young masters. It's suitable for refining the true martial pill. Ningyu threw the pill furnace into the air. Then both his hands started to work at the same time, grabbing medicinal ingredients and throwing them into the pill furnace. In just a few moments, Ningyu had thrown all the medicinal ingredients into the pill furnace. What is Ningyu doing? How can he refine a true martial pill like this? Absolutely impossible, throwing medicinal ingredients into the pill furnace. If he can refine a true martial pill, I will twist my head off. Most of the martial artists in the room were geniuses of the capital. Some of them had profound martial arts cultivation, some had powerful soul force, and they were all high-level alchemists. In the eyes of these alchemists, Ning Yu's method of refining the true martial pill was completely nonsense. Not to mention the true martial pill, with his method, even a first-grade pill would be difficult to refine. Ha ha ha, Ning Yu, have you lost your mind? Zhang Tianwen didn't forget to take a look at Ning Yu during the intervals of refining the pills. Especially when he saw Ning Yu's method of refining pills, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. If you have lost your mind, go back and get treated, otherwise… What? However, just when Zhang Tianwen was about to mock Ning Yu, he saw something extremely shocking. He stood in the same place, raised his wrist, and pointed at Ning Yu with an extremely horrified look on his face. Up. Chapter 448. For minutes Ning Yu had sharp eyes and nimble hands, instantly flashing up and grabbing the 2 medicinal pills in his hand. Then, Ning Yu opened his palm and the 2 true martial pills appeared in front of everyone. Looking at the round elixir in Ning Yu's hand, the spacious number 2 yuan room instantly quietened down. Everyone's mouths were slightly agape and their faces were filled with disbelief. Gulp! After a while, someone swallowed a mouthful of saliva and the originally quiet room became noisy. Ning Yu really refined the true martial pill. It is indeed the true martial pill, and the quality has reached supreme grade. What? Supreme grade, true martial pill. It has only been 4 minutes, and Ning, you actually refined the supreme grade, true martial pill? Ning Yu's alchemy level has actually reached this level. Even if Dan Chenzi was at this age, it would be impossible to refine a true martial Dan so easily. Ning Yu's future achievements are destined to be higher than Dan Chenzi's. Let's not talk about this. Look at Zhang Tianwen's face. It looks like a pig's liver. Swish! Everyone's gaze shifted from Ning Yu to Zhang Tianwen. At this moment, Zhang Tianwen stood blankly on the spot, his eyes dull and his face full of confusion. If someone had told him in the past that Ning Yu could refine the true martial pill in 4 minutes, he would definitely have scoffed at it. However, Ning Yu had truly refined the true martial Dan, and there were still 10 seconds left before the 4 minutes mark. In other words, Ning Yu refined the true martial pill in less than 4 minutes. Impossible, this is impossible. Suddenly, Zhang Tianwen shouted, "There's something wrong with the cauldron." The 2 true martial pills in Ning Yu's hands must have been placed in the cauldron long ago. Whoosh! Zhang Tianwen's words caused a huge uproar at the scene. Everyone's gaze shifted to Ning Yu again, and soon to Elder Tan. Old Tan was the referee of this alchemy competition. Everyone's intention was obvious, to let Old Tan inspect the pill furnace. "Ning Yu, let me check your cauldron," Old Tan said to Ning Yu after pondering for a moment. "It's not that I don't want you to inspect the furnace. It's just that the first prince is refining the true martial Dan. If I waste time here, who will be responsible if I fail?" Ning Yu pointed at the first prince and said, the first prince was a very shrewd person. Even though Ning Yu had refined the true martial Dan, it did not have any effect on him. From the start of the alchemy until now, for minutes had passed, the first prince had already completely refined the medicinal ingredients. According to his speed, he would probably be able to refine the true martial Dan in another 4 to 5 minutes. Ning Yu was not stupid. Once the eldest imperial prince successfully refined the true martial pill, wouldn't he be defeated? Ha ha ha, Ning Yu, you have a guilty conscience. You don't dare to let Old Tan inspect the furnace. Zhang Tianwen laughed. Ning Yu, I know that doing this might be a bit of a waste of time. Don't worry, I will inspect it as fast as I can. I won't waste too much of your time, Old Tan said in a deep voice. It was obvious that he was determined to inspect the furnace. In fact, Old Tan also felt that it was inconceivable. Refining the true martial Dan in 4 minutes was something he had never heard of. The old ancestor of the imperial family had personally refined a true martial Dan some time ago. even with the old ancestors' peak level of alchemy, it still took him 5 minutes to refine the true martial Dan. The quality of the true martial Dan was the same as the one Ningyu had refined. Therefore, in Old Tan's opinion, Ningyu was definitely cheating. Due to the large number of people here, it was not good for him to say it himself. He felt that he should leave some face for Ningyu. It's not impossible to inspect my furnace, but you have to inspect Zhang Tianwen and the first princes as well, Ningyu said in a deep voice. What a joke. Not wasting time? To hell with it. Ningyu made up his mind in his heart. If he wanted to inspect, he would inspect all 3 pill furnaces together. Otherwise, he would not inspect anyone. Please cooperate a little. Old Tan's expression was somewhat gloomy. Originally, he wanted to leave some face for Ningyu. Who would have thought that Ningyu would not appreciate the face he gave and instead opposed him? Since he did not stop with his good words, then Old Tan planned to use force. In the next moment, Old Tan took a step out and stood in front of Ningyu. Swoosh! Old Tan's action made Ouyang Yuan's expression extremely ugly. His figure flashed and blocked in front of Ningyu. The pill furnace was given to Ningyu by me. Could it be that Old Tan doesn't even believe me? Ouyang Yuan said coldly. Old Tan seemed to be making things difficult for Ningyu, but in reality he was included in it as well. How could he not be angry? How could he not be angry? 6th Prince, this matter has nothing to do with you. Old Tan's expression was solemn as he said, There's definitely no problem with your pill furnace. I just don't quite believe in Ningyu. If Ningyu isn't guilty, why won't he let me inspect the pill furnace? Hoo-hoo, words that are rather nice to hear. Ningyu smiled faintly and said, If you want to incriminate someone, you can always find a pretext. Today, I want to see how you inspect my pill furnace. The fury in Ningyu's heart was very great, very great. Old Tan was clearly opposing him. Towards this kind of person, he could not let him reach for a yard after taking an inch. You could conclude that Old Tan would definitely say that there was a problem with the pill furnace. Ignoring Old Tan, Ningyu threw the pill furnace into the air and casually grabbed the medicinal herbs, throwing all of them into the pill furnace. After such a torment, another minute passed. The eldest prince, by the side, was already about to form the pill. If he continued to delay, it would only be disadvantageous to him. Ningyu was not a fool and naturally understood this logic. Want to inspect the pill? Sure, wait until I refine the 2nd batch of true martial pill. Humph, looks like you really have a problem. Fine, I'll snatch your pill furnace first and then carefully study it. Seeing that Ningyu was ignoring him, Old Tan snorted coldly. Both his feet stepped on the ground and his palm grabbed straight at the pill furnace in the air. Could it be that Ningyu really has a guilty conscience? Inside the box, Ren Xiangtian's brows were tightly knitted as he muttered. To be honest, Ren Xiangtian was also rather suspicious of Ningyu, because refining a supreme-grade, true martial pill in 4 minutes, and using someone else's pill furnace, he had a skeptical attitude. However, as a peerless genius of the Alchemy Union, he had heard from the upper echelons of the Alchemy Union that there was a type of heaven-defying genius in this continent. Their control of soul force had reached the acme of perfection. In the Sky Fiend region, there were even people who could refine a true martial pill in 3 minutes. Furthermore, the quality was not lower than supreme grade. Although Ren Xiangtian did not believe in Ningyu, he did not kick him when he was down. Instead, he wanted to compete with Ningyu in alchemy. Refining a supreme grade, true martial pill in 4 minutes? Even I might not be able to do that. Compared to Ren Xiangtian, the martial artists at the peak of the primal core stage were more shocked. In the 2nd Yuan box, he was probably the only one who knew how difficult it was to refine a true martial pill in 4 minutes and how unbelievable it was. When Ningyu had been refining the pill, he had been watching the whole time. He could basically conclude that Ningyu did not cheat. In fact, refining a true martial pill in 4 minutes was not even Ningyu's limit. Chapter 449. Changing Furnace Bang. Right at this moment, a voice sounded out from midair. Ning Yu punched out, clashing head-on with Elder Tan. Whoosh! Whoosh! After one move, Ning Yu and Old Tan stood on both sides. What? Ning Yu's martial arts strength is so strong? Elder Tan is an early-stage yin-yang realm martial artist, but Ning Yu actually took one move from him and did not fall into a disadvantageous position. His alchemy skills are superb, and his martial arts strength is formidable. No wonder he is a core disciple of the Sacred Institute of Danwu College. Humph! Old Tan didn't use his full strength, or Ning, you would have been killed long ago. The surrounding discussions clearly infuriated Zhang Tianwen. In his opinion, Ning Yu was just a late-stage, true martial realm martial artist. Even if his strength was valiant, it was still impossible for him to take a full blow from Elder Tan. Therefore, he concluded that Elder Tan definitely hadn't used his full strength. Elder Tan didn't use his full strength? It is possible. After all, Ning Yu is a cultivator invited by the Emperor. If Old Tan uses his full strength, he might accidentally injure Ning Yu. No matter what, Ning Yu can be proud of himself for being able to take one move from Elder Tan. The discussions of the cultivators in the private rooms reached Old Tan's ears, causing his expression to turn unsightly. Although he hadn't used his full strength, he had still used 80% of it. He was very surprised that Ning Yu could block an attack with 80% of his strength. Although Ning Yu had resisted his oppressive aura on the street, it was only an oppressive aura. Now it was a solid punch, and Ning Yu had actually blocked it. He had originally thought highly of Ning Yu, but he did not expect that Ning Yu would give him one shock after another. Ning Yu, no matter what, I'm going to check your pill furnace today. Old Tan's face was gloomy as he berated. It's not impossible for you to inspect my pill furnace. Suddenly, Ning Yu rolled his eyes and said, But I have a request. What request? Elder Tan asked. Very simple. Lend me your pill furnace. Ning Yu snapped his fingers and said, You! Hearing Ning Yu's words, Old Tan's first reaction was to reject. Soon he changed his mind. He reached into his robe and pulled out a pill furnace. Ning Yu, this is my pill furnace. I'll lend it to you now. Elder Tan casually threw the pill furnace to Ning Yu and said in a deep voice, I'll go get you another set of ingredients for refining the true martial pill. You can use this pill furnace to refine the true martial pill. Saying that, Elder Tan was about to leave the room. However, before Elder Tan could walk out of the room, Ning Yu waved his hand and said, There's no need to go through so much trouble. I can transfer the medicinal ingredients to your furnace. In the next moment, Ning Yu's soul force entered Ouyang Yuan's pill furnace and controlled the medicinal ingredients inside to fly out and float in the air. Elder Tan, check these medicinal herbs and see if there's any problem. If there's no problem, I'll put them into your cauldron, Ning Yu said faintly as he pointed at the medicinal herbs in the air. Ning Yu was not a fool. He quietly used his perception to probe Elder Tan and discovered that Elder Tan did not have the true martial pill on him. Without the true martial pill on him, it was almost impossible for Elder Tan to frame him. In other words, Elder Tan only had one way to frame him, and that was to leave the room to get the true martial pill. Now that he did not let Elder Tan leave the room, Elder Tan naturally did not have the true martial pill, and it would be very difficult to frame him. Damn it! Sure enough, Ning Yu's actions made Elder Tan's face turn ashen. He could not wait to attack Ning Yu again and take down Ning Yu on the spot. However, he was not that stupid. Since Ning Yu had already said so, if he attacked Ning Yu again, it would be somewhat of a disadvantage. Helpless, Elder Tan could only release his perception and carefully examine the medicinal pills in the air. Elder Tan, that's enough. If this continues, the eldest prince and Zhang Tianwen will be able to refine the true martial pill. At this moment, the Peak Yuan Core realm martial artist said lightly, That's right. There's nothing wrong with these medicinal ingredients. Let's let Ning Yu continue refining the true martial pill. Beside him, Rin Xiangtian was also biased towards Ning Yu. Rin Xiangtian really wanted to see how long Ning Yu could use Elder Tan's pill furnace to refine the true martial pill. This was because Elder Tan's pill furnace was not even on the human roll of pill furnaces. It was just an ordinary pill furnace, which was worth at most 100,000 upper-grade yuan crystals. If Ning Yu could quickly refine the true martial pill using this kind of inferior pill furnace, it was enough to show how awesome Ning Yu was. Ning Yu, there's nothing wrong with the medicinal ingredients. You can continue refining the true martial pill. Elder Tan looked at the eldest prince on the other side and curled his lips. Although there's nothing wrong with the medicinal ingredients, I have to carefully examine your pill furnace. Whatever. Ning Yu shrugged and controlled the medicinal ingredients to enter Elder Tan's pill furnace. The pill furnace that Elder Tan gave him was simply the best of the best. Not only was the quality low, but there was even a soul imprint inside. To use the pill furnace to refine the true martial pill, the soul imprint must be erased. The eldest prince can refine the true martial pill in 4.5 minutes at most. Zhang Tianwen still has 5 minutes. I have to speed up. Taking a deep breath, Ning Yu's soul force surged out and entered the cauldron, attacking the soul imprint. What Ning Yu needed to do was to erase Elder Tan's soul imprint first. Although Old Tan's soul force wasn't too strong, only at the early stage of rank 4 his soul imprint was extremely powerful. Even though Ning Yu's soul force was at the peak of rank 5, it still took him 30 seconds to erase his soul imprint. Uft. As soon as Ning Yu erased the soul imprint inside the pill furnace, Elder Tan felt a fishy sweetness in his throat. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, he swallowed it back down. Otherwise, he would have lost a lot of face. After erasing the soul imprint inside the pill furnace, Ning Yu placed his right hand at the bottom of the pill furnace, and a blue flame appeared. Azure Spirit Fire. At this moment, Ning Yu decided to use the Azure Spirit Fire. There was not much time left. If he used Yuan Qi to ignite the flame, it might be too late. Therefore, Ning Yu used the flame, ranked 280th on the Mystic Flames list, the Azure Spirit Fire. However, when Ning Yu used the Azure Spirit Fire, he modified it slightly, making it difficult for the surrounding martial artists to detect its rank. Why does the flame on Ning Yu's fingertip look so familiar? Rin Xiangtian frowned when he saw the blue flame on Ning Yu's fingertip. He was very sensitive to flames and could basically determine that the flame on Ning Yu's fingertip was not simple. It was at least in the top 500 of the Mystic Flames list. The Azure Spirit Fire, ranked 280th on the Mystic Flames list. On the face of the pinnacle of the primal core stage martial artist, a grave expression surfaced. His understanding of flames was deeper than Ren Xiangtian's. When Ning Yu took out the flame, he knew that it was the Azure Spirit Fire, ranked 280th on the Mystic Flames list. Chapter 450. Compromise Qi Qi. In midair, Ning Yu was controlling the flame of the blue spirit fire while controlling his soul force into the cauldron to start refining the true martial pill. With Ning Yu's soul force at the peak of the 5th grade, he could refine the true martial pill without any trouble, and the lowest quality would be the highest grade. There were still 4 minutes before the eldest prince and Zhang Tianwen could refine the true martial pill. In other words, Ning Yu had to refine the true martial pill within 4 minutes to win. Using Old Tan's inferior pill furnace to refine the true martial Dan, for the current Ning Yu, there was still a long way to go. I can refine the true martial pill in 5 minutes. Let's see how arrogant you can be then. Zhang Tianwen snorted coldly and said sinisterly. Zhang Tianwen had the white fiend cauldron and the red patterned fire. Combined with the soul force of the 5th grade middle stage, He had already reached the last step in just 5 minutes. The pill formation was also the most important part of refining the true martial pill. Even with Zhang Tianwen's alchemy level, it would still take him 5 minutes to complete the final pill formation. I can refine the true martial pill in 4 minutes. Compared to Zhang Tianwen, the eldest prince's speed of refining the true martial pill was much faster. Although the eldest prince's soul force was not as strong as Zhang Tianwen's, his cauldron and flame were better than Zhang Tianwen's. Comparing the two, it was reasonable that he could refine the true martial pill before Zhang Tianwen. Bang! However, just as Ningyu and the others were refining the true martial pill, a crisp voice sounded. Ningyu, you actually said that there is no problem with the cauldron? Old Tan slammed the cauldron on the ground and scolded, "Look at what's in the cauldron!" Crash! The crisp sound of the cauldron falling on the ground and Old Tan's scolding easily attracted everyone's attention. What's going on? What's wrong with the cauldron? I didn't find any problem. I don't see any problem either. Is Elder Tan deliberately making things difficult for Ningyu? It's hard to say. After all, the first prince is about to refine the true martial Dan. Elder Tan is indeed ruthless to deal with Ningyu at this time. Ningyu is not a pushover. Let's wait and see for now. At first, the voices of the surrounding martial artists were very soft, but in the end, the voices gradually became louder. It wasn't that they found their conscience and spoke up for Ningyu, but Elder Tan's actions were indeed a little overboard. Without any evidence, he deliberately made things difficult for Ningyu. This was clearly looking for trouble. Open your eyes wide and see what's in this furnace. The discussions of the surrounding cultivators clearly caused Old Tan's expression to turn ugly. However, he was still rational and did not get angry. Instead, he pointed at the cauldron on the ground and said coldly, "What else could be inside the pill furnace?" As soon as Old Man Tan's voice fell, an alchemist released his soul force and carefully entered the pill furnace. F***CK. Very quickly the alchemist cursed. "What's in the pill furnace?" "I'm not sure. Let's check it too." "Yes, let's check it." There were also many alchemists in the second Yuan room. Of course, apart from Ningyu and Zhang Tianwen, Ren Xiangtian and the peak primal core martial artist with the highest level of alchemy. The two of them frowned and pondered for a moment before they also released their soul force and began to probe the pill furnace. Swish! However, just as they released their soul force, Old Man Tan's figure flashed and landed in front of them. "You too, give me some face. Don't interfere in this matter. I will definitely thank you in the future." Old Man Tan's words were a little vague, but the meaning was clear. "Old Man Tan, by doing this, aren't you afraid that the Emperor?" Rin Xiangtian frowned and said, "If I told you that I'm doing this completely on the orders of that person, I wonder how you would feel." Old Man Tan interrupted Ren Xiangtian and said lightly. Rin Xiangtian instantly understood. It turned out that Old Man Tan wasn't fighting alone in this matter. There was an even more powerful existence behind him. After pondering for a moment, Ren Xiangtian said in a low voice, "No matter what, Ningyu is a core disciple of Danwu College's Sacred Institute. Isn't that person a little too petty by doing this?" "Petty? Haha. To tell you the truth, the Emperor wants to choose one of the 3 princes to be the crown prince." Old Man Tan raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Therefore, the crown prince must not leave Tianyuan building at this time. Isn't the Emperor afraid of offending Danwu College?" Rin Xiangtian still wanted to fight for Ningyu and continued. "Ningyu is many times stronger than Zhang Tianwen. If Danwu College finds out about today's matter, they will definitely spend more resources on Ningyu. In fact, it is very likely that Ningyu will be promoted to the second son of Saint in Danwu College's history. If Ningyu wants to become the son of Saint, he might still be a little short." At this moment, the peak primal core martial artist said, "Slowly! Danwu College has extremely strict requirements for for the son of saint. Otherwise, there wouldn't be only one son of saint after so many years. Even if Ning Yu can't become the son of saint, you can't frame him, right? Ren Xiangtian said in a low voice. I agree with that. The peak primal core martial artist nodded and turned to Old Man Tan. If there really was a problem with the cauldron, I wouldn't say anything if you punished Ningyu. But now that there is nothing wrong with the cauldron, I'm afraid I won't agree to it if you frame him. This Old Man Tan could ignore Ren Xiangtian's words, but he had to consider the words of a peak primal core martial artist. Because of the status of a peak primal core martial artist, he could not afford to offend him. Even the current emperor had to think twice before acting. After a moment of silence, Old Man Tan began to use the secret method of the royal family to contact the emperor. After a moment, Old Man Tan took a deep breath, and his expression became somewhat ugly. Old Man Tan, how did the discussion go? The peak primal core martial artist asked lightly. Ning Yu is lucky today to have you speak up for him. Old Man Tan's expression was cold, and a huge suction force exploded from his palm. In an instant, the cauldron on the ground was caught in his hand. What is Old Man Tan doing? I'm not sure. Didn't he say that there was a problem with the cauldron? Why did he take it back now? Maybe. I'm not sure either. Why are you talking if you're not sure? Old Man Tan's expression was somewhat gloomy as he said in a clear voice, I was careless just now. There is nothing wrong with this cauldron. Nothing wrong? That's impossible. I found a true martial pill in the cauldron. An early stage, 4th grade alchemist exclaimed. Haha, let me tell you. The peak primal core martial artist smiled and said, what you found was not a true martial pill, but an elixir that is extremely similar to the true martial pill, the true spirit pill. True spirit pill? The early stage, 4th grade alchemist frowned slightly and murmured. The crowd's gasps did not affect Ningyu at all. He looked at Old Tan and said, Does this count as my victory? Indeed, it counts as your victory. Old Tan's face was gloomy. Since I have one, then please ask Zhang Tianwen and the Crown Prince to leave. They are not welcome here. Ningyu shrugged and said, What, you want to kick us out? Hearing Ningyu's words, Zhang Tianwen was the first to explode. He said angrily, Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? You and the Crown Prince refined the true martial Dan at the same time. How can you be considered the winner? Did the Crown Prince refine the true martial Dan too? Why didn't I know about it? Ningyu's expression was a little exaggerated as he said, Ask the Crown Prince to take out the true martial Dan for me to see. If he can take out the true martial Dan, I will consider it your victory. Ha ha ha. Zhang Tianwen laughed out loud. He then changed the topic and said coldly, Ningyu, you are too confident. The Crown Prince has already refined the true martial Dan. You are just one step ahead of him. Then Zhang Tianwen came to the Crown Prince's side and said, Crown Prince, please take out the true martial Dan and show it to the arrogant Ningyu. What is Ning Yu doing? There is also a true martial Dan in the cauldron. Rin Xiangtian frowned. With his powerful soul power, he could naturally see that there was a true martial Dan in the cauldron. Although it was only a low-grade true martial Dan, it was still a true martial Dan. Once the Crown Prince took out the true martial Dan, didn't that mean that Ningyu was going to lose? There seems to be something wrong with the true martial Dan in the cauldron. The peak of the primal core realm warrior murmured as he stared at the cauldron and took a deep breath. The Crown Prince's face was gloomy. He stood where he was and did not take out the true martial Dan in the cauldron right away. The soul power in his body poured out and entered the cauldron. He seemed to be fiddling with something. Pa! After a while, the Crown Prince's palm hit the cauldron hard. The lid flew up, and a smooth and round elixir shot out from the cauldron. The crown prince grabbed the elixir in his hand and waved it in front of everyone. He said in a low voice, "The quality of the true martial Dan I made is not as good as Ningyu's. It is only a low-grade, true martial Dan. A low-grade true martial Dan is still a true martial Dan. Crown Prince, don't belittle yourself." "Zhang," Tuin said loudly, "I seem to have heard someone say that as long as the Crown Prince can make the true martial Dan, he will lose." Then Zhang Tianwen smiled at Ningyu, but that kind of smile was very annoying. "Ah, I can't believe that Ningyu shot himself in the foot." Yeah, Ningyu had already won, but he just had to ask for it. He asked for it. He can't blame anyone else. The discussion of the martial artists around made Zhang Tianwen even more proud. It was as if he was the one who made the true martial Dan and not the Crown Prince. "Crown Prince, can I ask you a question?" Ningyu said to the Crown Prince expressionlessly. "What is it?" The Crown Prince's eyes flickered. He was about to put the true martial Dan in his pocket. "Hee, I just want you to take out the true martial Dan and let everyone check it," Ningyu said with a smile. "Ningyu, what do you mean? Do you think the Crown Prince didn't make the true martial Dan?" Zhang Tianwen scolded before the Crown Prince could say anything. "I didn't say that. I just want him to take out the true martial Dan," Ningyu said lightly. "If he has a guilty conscience, he can choose not to take it out." "Humph, just take it out. What's the big deal?" The first prince snorted coldly and placed the pill in his hand on the table. In the number 2 yuan booth, everyone moved closer to the table, trying to take a closer look at the Dan. The quality of this true martial Dan is just a bit low. There is nothing wrong with it. The Crown Prince is a 4th-grade early-stage alchemist. It is not easy for him to make a low-grade, true martial Dan in 10 minutes. "Ning, you wouldn't be unreasonable." "What?" However, before the last cultivator could finish a sentence, his eyes widened and a look of shock appeared on his face. Crack! Chapter 452. An inexplicable threat, damn it! When the low-grade, true martial pill was broken, the first prince dashed out violently. After cursing in his heart, he dashed straight towards the table. Whoosh! However, as soon as the first prince moved, Ningyu moved and blocked his way. "Get out of my way," the eldest prince said coldly. "Hee, why are you in such a hurry? Do you want to keep the shattered true martial pill?" Ningyu smiled. Bang! The eldest prince's face darkened when he heard Ningyu's words. In the next moment, he took a step forward and punched Ningyu's chest with his fist that contained a violent fluctuation of yuan qi. In order to repel Ningyu, the first prince used all his strength in this attack, bringing forth gusts of strong wind. Big Brother is so strong. The 6th prince, Ouyang Yuan, looked serious when he saw the eldest prince's attack. The eldest prince was the biggest obstacle on his path to becoming the crown prince. With the eldest prince in his way, he had almost no hope of becoming the crown prince. He and the eldest prince had similar power, the only difference being their own strength. If he could beat the eldest prince in martial arts, he would have an 80% chance of becoming the crown prince. As for the remaining 20%, it was the 3rd prince, Ouyang Hai. "Let's fight. It's best if both sides suffer." The 3rd prince, Ouyang Hai, watched the fight between Ningyu and the eldest prince like a bystander, as if it had nothing to do with him. What is the eldest prince trying to do? Ning, you can even fight against Old Tan. How can he be a match for Ningyu? Rin Xiangtian frowned. He felt that the eldest prince was digging his own grave. There was no chance of him winning. Old Tan was an early-stage Yinyang realm martial artist. If Ning Yu could take a blow from him without losing, it showed how strong Ningyu was. The eldest prince was only an early-stage, primordial core martial artist. Even if he gave it his all, he might not be a match for Ningyu. Xiao! At that moment, a silhouette dashed past the first prince, and with a shocking speed, flew towards the table where the low-grade, true martial pills were placed. It's Zhang Tianwen. What is he doing? Isn't it obvious? He wants to snatch the low-grade, true martial Dan. Originally, everyone's attention had been focused on Ning Yu and the first prince. They wanted to see if Ning Yu could block the first prince's fatal attack. However, Zhang Tianwen's sudden action caused them to start discussing. The discussions of these cultivators naturally distracted Ning Yu, causing him to look at Zhang Tianwen. It's not good to be distracted now. Ning Yu had just turned his head when the great prince's laughter rang out beside his ear. At the next moment, the first prince's fist arrived before Ning Yu and smashed fiercely toward Ning Yu's chest. Noisy! Faced with such a powerful attack from the first prince, Ning Yu let out a low bellow. He infused the essence in his sea of consciousness into his wrist and threw a backhand punch. It collided with the first prince's fist. Bang! Crack! First, a crisp sound was heard, followed by a cracking sound. In the end, the first prince let out a hysterical scream, and his body retreated explosively. Shush! As the first prince retreated, Ning Yu rose from the ground and appeared before Zhang Tianwen in the blink of an eye. Furthermore, Ning Yu quickly reached out his right hand and grabbed at Zhang Tianwen's wrist. Get out of my way! Zhang Tianwen was about to grab the low-grade, true martial Dan, but the sudden appearance of his palm made his eyes turn cold. The next moment, Zhang Tianwen's palm turned into a claw and grabbed at Ning Yu's wrist. Crack! Unfortunately, Ning Yu also turned his fist into a claw and grabbed Zhang Tianwen's wrist before he could. A crisp sound accompanied by the squeal of a pig being slaughtered rang out in booth number 2. Don't be so shameless. This Dan is indeed a low-grade, true martial Dan, but it is only a semi-finished product. It cannot be considered a real, true martial Dan. After pushing back Zhang Tianwen, Ning Yu pointed at the Dan on the table and said coldly, What, a semi-finished product? A martial artist exclaimed. It really is a semi-finished product. No wonder Ning Yu was so confident. An early level 4 alchemist nodded. Yes, after all this time, the first prince made a semi-finished product. I thought he, another mid-primal core martial artist, said with a frown. Don't talk so much. Before the mid-primal core martial artist could finish, another martial artist next to him gave him a look and whispered, The first prince is already miserable enough. Zhang Tianwen, first prince, do you want to leave the booth yourselves, or do I have to invite you out? Ning, you did not ask old Tan this time. Instead, he said lightly, I won't make things difficult for you if you leave yourselves. But if I invite you out, I might ask for some compensation. Ning Yu, aren't you going a bit too far? Old Tan felt the need to plead on behalf of the first prince and Zhang Tianwen. The first prince and Zhang Tianwen have already been injured by you. Asking them to leave now is not very kind. Haha, I just gave them a chance by asking them to leave. Ning Yu smiled. If the injuries on their palms are not treated in time within an hour, there will likely be repercussions. I only asked them to leave to treat the injuries on their palms. When it's possible to let people off, one should take a detour. Sometimes, giving others a chance is also giving yourself a chance. Old Tan said, solemnly, I understand this logic, but I'm the one who decides who I give a chance to. You don't. Ning Yu said indifferently, not giving any face to Old Tan. Old Tan's face darkened. He wished he could attack Ning Yu again. However, he was very clear that he could not attack Ning Yu again without the Emperor's orders. Buzz, buzz! Suddenly, the space around Old Tan trembled slightly. Then, an almost undetectable sound entered his ears. The corners of Old Tan's mouth rose slightly, revealing a sinister smile. Old Tan crossed his arms and stared at Ning Yu with interest. Ning Yu, I have a piece of news to tell you. I wonder if you want to hear it? Ning Yu raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, What news? Why don't you tell me? There are a total of 3 boxes on the 4th floor of the Tianyuan restaurant. Aside from our box, there is also Yuan Box 1 and Yuan Box 3. Senior Tan paced 2 steps in the room and said, Your friends may have encountered some trouble in the 3rd Yuan box. Trouble? Ning Yu faintly felt that something was wrong. However, he did not lose his rationality. Chapter 453. Chapter 453. Death throw him out, ha ha ha, ouch! Zhang Tianwen could not help but laugh at Old Man Tan's words. However, because his laughter was too loud, it triggered the injury on his wrist, causing him to grimace in pain. Ningyu, if I remember correctly, Lu Wei and the rest should be in the 3rd Yuan room. Zhang Tianwen endured the pain from his wrist and said fiercely, 3 early primal core Zhang family martial artists. Hey, just thinking about it makes me excited. Zhang Tianwen, don't get excited here, just get out. Feng Zi was in the 3rd Yuan room, and with him around, not to mention 3 early primal core Zhang family martial artists. Even if there were 5 or 10, Ningyu would not be too worried. With Feng Zi's powerful strength, defeating 3 early primal core Zhang family martial artists was as easy as pie. Therefore, as soon as Ningyu's voice fell, he went straight to Zhang Tianwen, grabbed his shoulder, and lifted him up like he was lifting a chick. Put me down, or I'll teach you a lesson. Being lifted up by Ningyu, Zhang Tianwen felt humiliated and shouted. However, Ningyu completely ignored him and walked straight to the door of the 2nd Yuan room. Bang! In the next moment, Ningyu exerted some strength in his wrist and threw Zhang Tianwen out of the room. Clap, clap. Then, Ningyu dusted his hands and once again came before the first prince. Facing the first prince, Ningyu did not treat him the same way he treated Zhang Tianwen, but said calmly, I will not make things difficult for you. You better leave the room yourself. Once I make a move, you might be a little embarrassed. Ningyu, is there really no room for negotiation? The first prince's face was cold as he said in a low voice. To be honest, he could not accept leaving the room. As the first prince of the Xia kingdom, the most likely contender for the position of crown prince, if word got out that he had compromised with Ningyu in the 2nd Yuan room, how could he establish himself in the Xia kingdom? How could he establish himself in the capital? It's too late to discuss it with me now, Ningyu said lightly. You. The first prince's face was livid and extremely gloomy. He had no choice but to shift his gaze to Elder Tan, hoping to get his help. At this time, only Old Tan could help him and let him stay in the private room. Sigh. Elder Tan sighed softly and turned his head away, refusing to look at the first prince. Without the emperor's approval, Elder Tan did not dare to do anything to Ningyu. Kaka! Elder Tan's actions caused the eldest prince to clench his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard, and his heart sank to rock bottom. Ningyu, let's put this matter behind us. I owe you a favor. Right at this moment, a powerful voice resounded from room 2. Voila! The moment this voice rang out, the expressions of all the cultivators in the private rooms turned serious. I thought you wouldn't open your mouth. Ningyu was not too surprised. After all, the eldest prince was a strong contender for the position of crown prince, and the emperor would definitely not allow him to leave Tianyuan restaurant. The emperor had personally spoken up to plead for the eldest prince. If Ningyu continued to be stubborn, it would not be forceful but foolish. Elder Tan, bring Ming-er for treatment. I will personally host the rest of the assessment. The powerful voice rang out again, leaving no room for doubt. Yes, Elder Tan didn't dare to be negligent. After responding, he immediately left the 2nd Yuan room with the eldest prince. Since Ningyu has defeated Ming-er and Zhang Tianwen in alchemy, then Ningyu does not need to participate in the following alchemy assessment. He can directly participate in the final assessment. After Elder Tan left, the powerful voice rang out again. Your Majesty, I have a request. As soon as the powerful voice rang out, a peak primal core cultivator stepped forward and said in a deep voice, I want to compete with Ningyu in alchemy. You want to compete with him in alchemy? In room 1, the middle-aged man's expression was somewhat displeased, but he still said in a deep voice, I cannot make the decision on this matter. As long as you can ask for Ningyu's permission, I don't mind. Raising an eyebrow, the peak primal core cultivator came before Ningyu and said directly, I want to compete with you in alchemy. I hope you can agree. Why should I compete with you in alchemy? Ningyu did not immediately agree to the peak primal core cultivator's request, but frowned instead. Up until now, Ningyu did not even know who the peak primal core cultivator was. Compete with him in alchemy? There was no need at all. Haha, my identity is very ordinary. The martial artist at the peak of the primal core stage smiled and whispered to Ningyu, as long as you can defeat me in the alchemy competition, I can tell you who I am. Not interested, Ningyu shrugged. You may not be interested now, but if I tell you that I know who the mysterious power in Shui Pavilion is, I wonder if you would be interested, the peak primal core cultivator said again. This time, Ningyu was finally moved, and he said in a deep voice, Do you know who that mysterious force is? That's right, but only if you can defeat me in alchemy. The peak primal core cultivator nodded and said, No problem, I can promise you that. Hearing this, Ningyu did not hesitate and immediately agreed to the peak primal core cultivator's request. He had originally intended to make a trip to Shuiyu Pavilion after leaving Tianyuan Tower. If he could find out who the mysterious power in Shuiyu Pavilion was, it would naturally save him a lot of trouble. Indeed straightforward, I like it. The peak primal core cultivator's face lit up as he said this. Ningyu looked at the peak primal core cultivator with disdain. You like me, but I don't like you. Oh, right, I still don't know your name. Suddenly, Ningyu seemed to have thought of something and asked, Look at my memory, Li Tong Tian. The peak primal core cultivator patted his head. However, before he could finish his sentence, a cracking sound rang out from the door of the second yuan booth. Whoosh! As the sound rang out, all the warriors in the booth turned their gazes to the door in unison. If they had not looked, they would not have known, but once they did, they were shocked. In front of the booth, 3 warriors covered in blood stood there, their auras slightly weak. What? The moment he saw these 3 warriors, Ningyu shouted out loud, because among the 3 warriors, there was one that he was extremely familiar with. It was none other than Feng Zi. Who had beaten Feng Zi up like this? Wasn't the highest level warrior in the 3rd yuan booth only at the early primal core stage? Who had such great power to beat Feng Zi up like this? And where were Lu Wei, Xigongling, and Xiaoyu? Why didn't he see them? A series of questions arose in Ningyu's mind, causing his expression to darken completely. Feng Zi, what is going on? After a brief moment of shock, Ningyu took a step forward and came before Feng Zi. In a low voice, he asked, Where are Lu Wei and the rest? Chapter 454. Illusion? What illusion? Ningyu's brows knitted tightly as he asked once more. Sucking in a deep breath, Feng Zi slowly said, Yuan room number 3. The entire thing is an illusion. It turned out that after Feng Zi and Lu Wei they all entered Yuan room number 3, they suddenly felt their vision go black and instantly lost consciousness. When they woke up, they found themselves in a dense forest. Virtually at the same time, Feng Zi knew that he entered an illusion. Furthermore, it was even a high-level illusion. Everything in the surroundings was vivid and lifelike. Just as Feng Zi, they all were thinking about how to leave the illusion. Several peak-tier, 5 demonic beasts suddenly appeared. Without a word, they directly launched an attack at them. Among the 4 of them, Only Feng Zi's strength was formidable and could contend with peak tier 5 demonic beasts. As for Xikong Ling and Xiaoyu, they were completely insufficient. The three of them joining hands were not a match for a peak tier 5 demonic beast. As they fought, Feng Zi and Lu Wei, they all got separated. What happened next? Feng Zi had no idea. He only remembered that he killed several peak tier 5 demonic beasts, then was transported out. Are Lu Wei, they all still in Yuan room number 3? Hearing Feng Zi's narration, Ningyu said in a solemn voice, "That's right. When I came out, I saw that Lu Wei and Xiaoyu, they all were still in Yuan room number 3. It's just that their expressions were lifeless and had not left the illusion yet," Feng Zi replied. "Looks like it's not a simple illusion, but a high-level illusion." Ning Yu's expression became extremely solemn. Logically speaking, low-level environments, as long as the character encountered danger or suffered interference, they would automatically leave the illusion. High-level illusionary realms were different. The injuries suffered in the illusionary realms would be brought back to reality. This was the most terrifying. Swoosh! Right at this time, a figure appeared in front of Yuan room number 2. Elder Tan. Seeing this familiar figure, Ning Yu's brows furrowed slightly, feeling somewhat incredulous. At this time, shouldn't Elder Tan bring the eldest prince to treat his wrist? Why did he appear here? These 3 warriors are experts selected from the 3rd Yuan box. Next, they will join you and participate in the assessment with you. Old Tan pointed to the 3 cultivators covered in blood and said in a clear voice, "Because they are injured, they will not participate in the first round of the test. They will participate in the second round directly." Following that, Old Tan said to Feng Zi and the rest, "Follow me. I'll treat you guys first before coming over to participate in the assessment later." "No need." Ningyu waved his hand and said, "I'll treat Feng Zi's injury. Elder Tan doesn't need to worry." This, Old Tan was dumbfounded and stood rooted to the ground. The reason why Elder Tan gave up on treating the eldest prince and came here was entirely because of the current emperor. The emperor's words were very simple. There was only one sentence: "Bring Feng Zi to see me." How could old man Tan disobey the emperor? Therefore, he gave up on treating the first prince and immediately went to the door of Yuan room number 2. Unexpectedly, Ningyu interfered. "I know my injuries very well. I'll be fine with Ningyu's help," Feng Zi said in a low voice. "The injuries you suffered in the illusion are a little special. Although Ningyu is not weak, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for him to treat you." Old Tan did not want to give up and decided to give it a try. He said, "The illusion was set up by a high-level illusionist in the royal family. He can treat your injuries in an extremely short time." Can I say something?" At this moment, Li Tongtian could not stand it anymore. He pointed to Feng Zi and said, "This brother's injuries are indeed very light. They are all superficial wounds and do not need any additional treatment. If Old Tan thinks that Ningyu can't treat him, I can give it a try." "Although I'm not very strong, I can still help," Rin Xiangtian said. "Hee, I have a good relationship with Ningyu. His business is my business." 6th Prince Ouyang Yuan laughed. Ouyang Yuan would not let go of any opportunity to get closer to Ningyu. Old Tan's expression was extremely ugly. If it was only Ningyu, he could forcefully take Feng Zi away. However, with Ouyang Yuan, Ren Xiangtian, and Li Tongtian, he had to think twice. Even he might not be a match for Ren Xiangtian and Li Tongtian, these 2 big shots. "Old Tan, go and do your thing. Leave Feng Zi's matter here for now. You don't need to worry about it." Just as Old Tan was feeling very troubled, a soft voice rang in his ear. Hearing this voice, Old Tan felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He glared fiercely at Ningyu and left. Other than Feng Zi, 2 other martial artists covered in blood followed closely behind Old Tan. After Old Tan and the others left, Li Tongtian smiled at Ningyu and said, Can we start our alchemy competition now? Wait a moment. Ning Yu did not agree to Li Tongtian immediately. Instead, he asked Ouyang Yuan, "How much do you know about the illusion in room 3? To be honest, even I didn't know that there was an illusion in room 3, Ouyang Yuan replied. Clearly, this was also the first time he heard that room 3 was an illusion. Even you don't know, Ning Yu fell into deep thought. Since 6th Prince Ouyang Yuan did not know about the illusion, it seemed that only old Tan and the Emperor knew about it in the vast Tianyuan building. What was the Emperor trying to do? Why did he set up an illusion in room 3? What was his intention? Ning Yu did not know about these things. However, there was one thing that Ning Yu was certain about. The Emperor most likely did not have good intentions. At the thought of this, Ning Yu tried his best to calm himself down. No matter what, at least Lu Wei and the rest were not in danger for the time being. 6th Prince, thank you for your cauldron just now. Without your cauldron, I would not have been able to refine the first batch of true martial pills, Ning Yu said to Ouyang Yuan. It was nothing. Furthermore, I did not help you much, Ouyang Yuan said. Ning Yu, I might know a thing or two about the illusions in the 3rd Yuan room. Li Tongtian frowned and said, There is only one high-level illusionist in the royal family. The illusion set up by that illusionist affects the weaker one's cultivation. How strong is his soul power? Ning Yu asked. Illusionists mainly relied on their soul power to create illusions. Therefore, the stronger the soul power, the more realistic and terrifying the illusion set up. In his previous life, Ning Yu had met an illusionist with a 9th grade soul power. Even Ning Yu had to spend an entire day to escape from the illusion set up by that illusionist. One could imagine how terrifying the illusion set up by an illusionist with a strong soul power was. Chapter 455. Chapter 455. Death, a formidable enemy, 6th grade soul power. As soon as Li Tongtian finished his sentence, Ning Yu's heart skipped a beat and he revealed a shocked expression. With Lu Wei's cultivation, it was almost impossible for her to escape from an illusion set up by a 6th grade illusionist. Ning Yu's expression was extremely solemn. He took a step forward and said in a low voice, Li Tongtian, I might not be able to compete with you in alchemy anymore. I have something important to do now. Ning Yu would never allow Lu Wei and the rest to suffer in the illusion. Therefore, Ning Yu made up his mind to immediately head to Yuan Room 3 and enter the illusion to rescue Lu Wei and the rest. Ning Yu, I'm afraid it's too late for you to go now. Perhaps he had seen through Ning Yu's thoughts, Li Tongtian said in a low voice. Even if you enter the illusion set up by a high-level illusionist, it will be difficult to find anyone else. There are only 2 ways for a normal martial artist to leave the illusion, Ren Xiangtian added. First, leave the illusion like Feng Zi did. Second, the illusionist will release them personally. Ning Yu, they're right, Feng Zi said in a low voice. When we first entered the illusion, there was no one else except for the few of us. This means that even if you enter the illusion, you won't be able to find Lu Wei and the rest. If that's the case, then find the illusionist. Let him release Lu Wei and the rest personally. The Emperor must have known about letting Lu Wei enter the illusion set up by a high-level illusionist. But he did not stop it. Coupled with the fact that the mysterious faction in Snow Pavilion was very likely to have dealings with the royal family, Ning Yu could basically conclude that the illusionist had obtained the Emperor's approval. As for what the Emperor was up to, Ning Yu had no idea. I hope Lu Wei and the others are fine. Otherwise, Ning Yu clenched his fists and a ruthless look appeared on his face. Ning Yu, as long as you can defeat Li Tongtian and the others, I can let you meet the high-level illusionist who set up the illusion. At this moment, an extremely soft voice rang in Ning Yu's ears. Hearing this voice, Ning Yu's expression changed. He was extremely shocked in his heart, because the owner of the voice was none other than the current emperor. Li Tongtian, let's compete on which pill to refine. Since the emperor had spoken, it meant that Lu Wei and the rest were temporarily safe. Since Lu Wei and the rest were not in danger, Ning Yu could only follow the emperor's wishes and compete with Li Tongtian and the rest in pill refining. Although the feeling of being led by the nose made Ning Yu very unhappy, he was helpless now. Let's compete on refining the true martial pill. After a moment of silence, Li Tongtian said, the true martial pill is only a 4th grade pill. With our alchemy skills, we'll be able to refine it in no time. This time, we'll not only compete on pill refining speed, but also on the quality of the pill. Medicinal pill quality. Ning Yu raised his brows and said, without batting an eyelid, that's right. Whoever refines the true martial pill first wins. Li Tongtian said solemnly. Swoosh! Li Tongtian's words silenced the second Yuan room. The rest of the alchemists had their mouths agape. Their faces were filled with astonishment. The true martial pill? Could Ning Yu and Li Tongtian refine it? Although the true martial Dan was only a 4th grade Dan, the transcendent true martial Dan was extremely difficult to refine. It could be said that even a 5th grade or 6th grade alchemist would not dare to say that they could refine a transcendent true martial Dan. Who on earth was Li Tongtian to want to refine a true martial pill? Count me in. I'd like to try refining a true martial pill too. However, what surprised the crowd was yet to come. Rin Xiangtian immediately expressed his desire to join the ranks of those who wanted to refine the true martial pill. Were they too outdated, or was the world too crazy? Swoosh! After that, the crowd turned their attention to Ning Yu. They wanted to see if Ning Yu would agree to it. I'm fine with it. Let's refine the true martial pill. Ning Yu's answer did not disappoint the crowd. Great. Straightforward indeed. Seeing that Ning Yu had agreed, Li Tongtian let out a loud cry of joy. As an alchemist, Li Tongtian had never been a match for his peers. Ever since he saw Ning Yu, he had made up his mind to compete with Ning Yu in alchemy. When he was at the 4th grade soul power level, Li Tongtian had tried refining the true martial pill once. Regrettably, he failed to control the fire properly, resulting in the failure of refining the true martial pill. Since then, he had never tried to refine a true martial pill again. Oh, right. What cauldron are you using? Li Tongtian regained his composure and asked. A good cauldron could greatly improve an alchemist's skills, especially when refining a true martial pill. Without a good cauldron, it would be difficult to succeed. I'll use the 6th prince's cauldron. I used it just now, and it fits, Ning Yu said calmly, as if the cauldron did not affect him at all. Humph! What are you trying to act tough for? Do you really think it's that easy to refine a true martial pill? Suddenly, the 3rd prince, Ouyang Hai, sneered and mocked. Take out your cauldron. Even if you fail, we won't laugh at you. Ouyang Hai's words only made Ning Yu frown. He did not take it to heart. If he had to listen to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, wouldn't it be a waste of time? Ning Yu's indifferent attitude made Ouyang Hai's face turn ugly. Ouyang Hai was not an idiot. His alchemy skills were worlds apart from Ning Yu's, and their martial skills were also not on the same level. Even if he looked down on Ning Yu, he only dared to talk about it. He did not dare to go against Ning Yu directly. Ning Yu, why don't we make a bet? Suddenly, Ouyang Hai's ears twitched, and he said coldly, as long as you can refine a true martial pill, I can... Shut up. I'm not interested in making a bet with you. Ning Yu interrupted Ouyang Hai and said, if you know what's good for you, move aside. Otherwise, I'll make you pay. As he spoke, Ning Yu looked at Feng Zi. His meaning was self-evident. Swoosh! Feng Zi understood, and in a flash he appeared in front of Ouyang Hai. Feng Zi extended his right hand and grabbed Ouyang Hai's shoulder like he was carrying a little chick and walked out of the room. You're courting death. Ouyang Hai was furious to be grabbed by Feng Zi. After cursing, he clenched his fists and was about to throw them at Fengzi. What? However, just as Ouyang was about to throw out his palm, his expression changed. His face was full of disbelief. He felt his whole body go limp, and he could not exert any strength in his hands. Scram! While Ouyang was still in shock, Fengzi threw him out of the room. Ouyang body condition made Ningyu frown. He could not help but look at Li Tongtian. Just as Ouyang was about to throw a punch, Ningyu noticed a cold gleam shoot out from Li Tongtian and enter Ouyang body. Chapter 456. Begin. If I'm not wrong, that ray of cold light just now was Li Tongtian's soul power. Ningyu narrowed his eyes as a thought formed in his mind. A formidable opponent. Li Tongtian was definitely a formidable opponent. Although Ningyu could also use his soul power to make Ouyang body go limp, it would not be as simple as Li Tongtian. This meant that the strength of Li Tongtian's soul power might be even stronger than Ningyu's. Ningyu's soul power was at the pinnacle of the 5th grade. If it was stronger than his own, then it was highly possible that it was at the 6th grade. Ningyu, I have never seen your alchemy furnace. Why don't you show it to me? At this moment, Li Tongtian smiled faintly and said, Your alchemy cauldron should not be of a low level. If I told you that I don't have an alchemy furnace with me, would you believe me? Ningyu asked seriously. Staring into Ningyu's eyes, Li Tongtian shook his head and said, I don't believe you. A 5th grade alchemist doesn't have an alchemy furnace with him. Not only me, but everyone here will not believe it. How can he not have an alchemy furnace? He must not want to show it. Not want to show it? This is a supreme grade, true martial pill. How can he succeed if he doesn't have an alchemy furnace with him? It is precisely because the supreme grade, true martial pill is extremely difficult to refine that Ningyu chose not to use an alchemy furnace with him. This way, even if he fails, he'll have an excuse. That's possible. The discussions in the surroundings caused Ningyu's brows to knit together tightly, and he revealed a displeased expression. However, no matter what others said, Ningyu remained unmoved. The next moment, Ningyu came to Ouyang side and said, Please lend me your alchemy furnace again. I will return it to you very soon. Here, use it however you like. You don't have to return it to me. Ouyang handed the alchemy furnace to Ningyu, indicating that he could give it to Ningyu. Ningyu shrugged and declined to comment on Ouyang generosity. After that, Ningyu waved the cauldron in his hand and said to Li Tongtian, I have the cauldron now. Can I refine the supreme, true martial pill now? There's no hurry. Li Tongtian waved his hand and said, Since you are using such an ordinary cauldron, I will not take advantage of you. How about this? After a moment of silence, Li Tongtian continued, I don't need to carry a cauldron with me anymore. I'll just use a normal cauldron like yours. Li Tongtian reached into his robes and took out a palm-sized alchemy furnace. My elixir cauldron is very ordinary. It's ranked number 105 on the ranking list of cauldrons. It's slightly better than the one in your hand. Li Tongtian waved the elixir cauldron in his hand and smiled lightly. Since you're in such a good mood, I can't fall behind. Rin Xiangtian stepped forward with a small cauldron in his hand. Let's all use the cauldrons on the ranking list of cauldrons to refine the true martial pill. Let's see who can refine the supreme, true martial pill first. I'll be the judge. I promise I won't be biased. Yang raised his hand. Count me in. Zhou Jianming, who had been silent for a long time, chimed in. Even though my alchemy skills aren't that high, I know what a supreme, true martial pill is. Ningyu, when do you want to start? Li Tongtian asked. I don't care. As long as I have the ingredients, we can start any time. Ningyu shrugged. Great. You're straightforward. Li Tongtian hollered and flicked his sleeves. Instantly, a storage pouch appeared in his hands. Swoosh! Swoosh! Li Tongtian patted the storage bag, and two beams of light shot out. One flew towards Ningyu, and the other towards Ren Xiangtian. Smack! Smack! Ningyu and Ren Xiangtian grabbed the beams of light at the same time. The ingredients for refining the true martial pill. The beams of light were none other than the ingredients for refining the true martial pill. Each beam of light contained 2 sets of ingredients. This meant that Ningyu and the rest had 2 chances each. Of course, it didn't matter how many chances they had. After all, they were competing to see who could refine the supreme, true martial pill first. Please check the pills. If there's no problem, we can start. Li Tongtian took out 2 sets of ingredients and kept the storage bag. No problem. Ren Xiangtian glanced at the ingredients and said, "Let's start." Ning, you didn't check the ingredients on purpose. When the ingredients were flying towards him, he had already used his soul power to check them. With Li Tongtian's pride, he wouldn't make a fuss about the ingredients. If that's the case, I'll make a move first. As he spoke, Li Tongtian tossed the cauldron in his hand into the air. A green flame appeared on his left fingertip, and he started to heat the cauldron. At the same time, Li Tongtian grabbed a stalk of ingredient with his right hand and threw it into the cauldron. He increased the temperature of the flame and started refining the ingredients. What kind of flame is this? Could it be a flame on the mystical flame chart? I don't know. It should be a flame on the mystical flame chart. It could even be in the top 500. Top 500? That's not possible. It's extremely difficult to get the top 500 flames on the mystical flame chart. It should be difficult for Li Tongtian to get it. No matter what, this flame isn't simple. Swoosh! As the crowd was discussing Li Tongtian's flame, Ren Xiangtian threw the small cauldron above his head. He grabbed a stalk of ingredient and threw it into the cauldron. At the same time, a green flame appeared on his fingertip, and it kept burning the bottom of the cauldron. Green flame? Could it be the green crane flame that's ranked 307th on the mystical flame chart? I don't think so. I've seen the green crane flame before. It's different from the one in Ren Xiangtian's hand. Even if it's not the green crane flame, it must be an extremely precious flame. Whoosh! Compared to the crowd's shock, Ningyu's face was full of surprise. Others might not know what the green and green flames were, but Ningyu knew them very well. The green flame on Li Tongtian's fingertip was the green spirit flame. It was ranked 260th on the mystical flame chart. The green flame on Ren Xiangtian's wrist was the green serpent flame. It was ranked 265th on the mystical flame chart. Both the green spirit flame and the green serpent flame were ranked higher than the blue spirit flame on the mystical flame chart. Disregarding the strength of one's soul power, Ningyu had already lost to Li Tongtian and Ren Xiangtian in terms of flames alone. Rise! The next moment, Ningyu let out a low growl and threw the cauldron into the air. His soul power surged out and entered the cauldron. At the same time, Ningyu grabbed 2 ingredients and threw them into the cauldron. Although there was only a difference of 1 word between the supreme and supreme true martial elixirs, Ningyu did not dare to be careless. If there was even the slightest mistake, the refining of the supreme true martial elixir would end in failure. Therefore, Ningyu did not throw all the ingredients into the cauldron. Instead, he threw them in 2 at a time. Ningyu wants to use this method to refine the supreme true martial elixir? Chapter 457. The first cauldron failure. That's not possible. It's not that easy to refine a supreme, true martial pill. Ningyu won't succeed if he tries to use this method again. Zhou Jiaming shook his head and said, I dare say that Ningyu will definitely refine the herbs one by one. He won't. What? However, before Zhou Jiaming could finish his sentence, his eyes widened and his face was filled with disbelief. Ning Yu grabbed another 2 pearls of herbs and threw them into the cauldron. Gulp! Ning Yu's actions made Zhou Jiaming swallow a mouthful of saliva. His mouth was wide open enough to fit a fist. If he guessed correctly, the 2 pearls of herbs in the cauldron had not been fully refined. Wasn't Ning Yu afraid of the pills exploding when he threw in another 2 pearls of herbs? What the hell is Ning Yu doing? He's refining supreme, true martial pills, and he dares to use this method. Is he an idiot, or is he really that capable? It's hard to say. Ning Yu's alchemy skills have been proven. Maybe he's still. I'm afraid only a fool like Ning Yu would dare to use this method to refine supreme, true martial pills. Before the last martial artist could finish a sentence, he was interrupted by a cold snort. Rustle. The next moment, a few figures appeared in front of Yuan Room 2. Eldest Prince, Third Prince, Old Tan. These figures belonged to the eldest prince and the rest. However, the eldest prince and the third prince seemed to have lost their differences and had started to work together. After entering the private room, the third prince glared fiercely at Li Tongtian, then snorted coldly. If Ning Yu can use this method to refine supreme Jinwu pills, I will twist my head off. Whoosh! The third prince's crazy words caused a commotion in the surroundings. Chop his head off? If Ning Yu really managed to refine supreme, true martial pills, wouldn't he die here? Suddenly, the third prince, Ouyang Hai, rolled his eyes and walked toward Ouyang Yuan. It didn't take long for him to arrive in front of Ouyang Yuan. He raised his brows and said, "Sixth brother, how about we make a bet?" "Tell me about it," Ouyang Yuan said in a deep voice. "Don't be nervous. This bet is very simple." Ouyang Hai laughed and said, "If Ning Yu is unable to refine a transcendent, grade true martial Dan, you have to give up the fight for the position of Crown Prince." Upon hearing that, Ouyang Yuan's heart sank, and he could not help but look at the first prince. Yangming crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked curiously at Ning Yu. He was not as fierce as before. On the other hand, Old Ten looked like he had nothing to do with this matter. Just now, third brother felt weak all over. It doesn't make sense for him to recover so quickly. Elder Tan, or Imperial Father, must have found someone to treat him. Ouyang Yuan's face was gloomy. He didn't know what Ouyang Hai was up to. To be more accurate, he didn't know what medicine the Emperor had up his sleeve. Fighting for the position of Crown Prince was such an important matter. Yet Ouyang Hai said it so casually. Had he already given up the fight for the position of Crown Prince? Sixth brother, if Ning Yu is able to refine a transcendent, grade, true martial Dan, I will also give up the fight for the position of Crown Prince. Ouyang Hai continued, "How about it? Do you dare to make this bet with me?" Pow! Just as Ouyang Yuan was about to answer, a muffled sound was heard, and the entire Yuan Room 2 was in an uproar. Including Ouyang Yuan, all the martial artists present looked in the direction of the sound. This muffled sound came from Ning Yu's cauldron. That's right, it did come from Ning Yu's cauldron. In other words, Ning Yu's first cauldron of true martial Dan ended in failure. I already said that Ning Yu can't refine a true martial Dan with this kind of alchemy method. After a brief silence, the crowd erupted into a flurry of discussion. The focus of everyone's discussion was on Ning Yu, because the muffled sound came from the cauldron on top of Ning Yu's head. Ha ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. The third prince, Ouyang Hai, was stunned for a moment before he burst into unbridled laughter. Don't use this kind of alchemy method if you don't have the ability. Oh, right, even if he uses other alchemy methods, he can't refine a true martial Dan. Just give up. Swoosh! As soon as Ouyang Hai finished speaking, Feng Zi's figure burst out and appeared in front of him. Yuan Qi gathered on his wrist. Feng Zi raised his fist and said angrily, "Say one more word and I'll throw you out." You! Ouyang Hai's smile stopped abruptly, and he couldn't help but take 2 steps back. But thinking that old Tan was here, he became a little braver and said in a low voice, "Ningyu failed, and you don't let others talk about it? Look at Li Tongtian and Rin Xiangtian. They've already refined all the medicinal ingredients. I believe it won't be long before they can refine a supreme grade, true martial Dan." Ouyang Hai's words made everyone look at Li Tongtian and Rin Xiangtian. Just as Ouyang Hai said, Li Tongtian had already refined all the medicinal ingredients. At this moment, he was increasing the flame and burning the cauldron fiercely, trying to force out the dregs from the medicinal liquid for the second time. Li Tongtian didn't dare to be careless. After all, it was his first time refining a supreme grade, true martial Dan. This time, he wanted to succeed no matter what. Even if it was a little slow, he wanted to refine all the dregs and ensure that he could succeed in one go. He didn't want to be like Ningyu, who had to refine a second time. On the other hand, although Ren Xiangtian was a step behind Li Tongtian, he had also refined all the medicinal ingredients. Ren Xiangtian didn't rest. He immediately started refining the medicinal liquid for the second time like Li Tongtian. Whether Ningyu can refine a supreme grade true martial Dan or not, it's not up to you to tell him what to do. Feng Zi scolded. "If you dare to spout nonsense again, believe it or not, little brother, don't be so hot-tempered at such a young age." At this moment, old Tan smiled and interrupted Feng Zi. He said, "Ningyu's first time refining the true martial Dan has consumed too much energy. It's almost impossible for him to refine a second batch of true martial Dan in such a short period of time, so what the third prince said is not wrong." "Old Tan, I'm afraid you guessed wrong this time." Before Feng Zi could refute, Ouyang Yuan said lightly, "Ningyu has already started refining the second batch of true martial Dan." "What?" Hearing this, old Tan quickly turned around and looked at Ningyu. However, when he saw Ningyu randomly throwing the medicinal ingredients into the cauldron, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha!" After laughing, old Tan pointed at Ningyu and said, "Sixth Prince, is this what you meant by starting the second batch of true martial Dan? Has he lost his mind this time, or is he suffering from epilepsy? He still dares to use this kind of refining method. TSK, I'm very impressed with his courage." From old Tan's point of view, the reason why Ningyu failed to refine the true martial Dan for the first time was because there was something wrong with his refining method. Chapter 458. All failed, ha ha ha. After Elder Tan's laughter, the third prince, Ouyang Hai, also laughed out loud. Bold indeed, getting crazier and crazier each time. "Third brother, don't kick him when he's down. That's not very nice." The eldest prince, Ouyang Ming, waved his hand and said calmly. However, just when everyone thought that Ouyang Ming was right, Ouyang Ming changed the topic and smirked. "Even if you want to kick him when he's down, you should wait until Ningyu fails. It's too early to say that now." Yes. Big brother, you're right. I've learned my lesson," Ouyang Hai said with an exaggerated expression. Towards the end, even Ouyang Hai couldn't help but laugh out loud. "What is Ningyu doing?" Li Tongtian's soul power was extremely strong. Even at the most crucial moment, he didn't forget to look at Ningyu. When he saw Ningyu's crazier actions, he couldn't help but mutter to himself. This kind of alchemy method wasn't completely undesirable, but it depended on what kind of pill was being refined. Based on Ningyu's soul power and alchemy level, if he were to refine a first-grade or second-grade pill, he could still use this method. However, the true martial pill was a fourth-grade pill. If Ningyu were to use this method, there was an 80% chance that he would fail. Ningyu has been left behind. Now, let's see if he can refine a supreme, true martial pill before Li Tongtian. Seeing that Ningyu was using such a crazy method again, Ren Xiangtian immediately excluded him. He thought that Li Tongtian was his true rival. Indeed, even a 6th grade or 7th grade alchemist wouldn't dare to say that they could use this method to refine a supreme, true martial pill, unless one's control of soul power was at its peak. One could separate many strands of soul power to refine herbs at the same time. Otherwise, refining a supreme, true martial pill would be harder than ascending to heaven. Feng Zi, your relationship with Ningyu is closer. Do you think he can succeed? Ouyang Yuan came in front of Feng Zi and asked. That's hard to say. After all, the transcendent true martial Dan is extremely difficult to refine. Taking a deep breath, Feng Zi's expression turned serious. Don't be fooled by Li Tongtian and Rin Xiangtian's speed. It will be extremely difficult for them to refine true martial pills in one go. That's right, that's a supreme, true martial Dan. Li Tongtian and Rin Xiangtian. Holy shit. At the side, Zhou Jianming was just about to chime in when his expression changed slightly. He stared fixedly at Li Tongtian, who was not too far away, with a look of shock in his eyes. Rise. Li Tongtian let out a low growl as he slammed his palm heavily against the pill furnace. A pill with a smooth and round appearance flew out from the pill furnace. Pa! Li Tongtian's face lit up with joy as he leapt up and grabbed the pill firmly in his hands. Who would have thought that Li Tongtian would be the first to refine a transcendent martial pill? What's so strange about that? Ning Yu has already been left behind, and Rin Xiangtian is still lacking. Naturally, Li Tongtian will be the first to refine a transcendent martial Dan. Ren Xiangtian is almost there too. According to my estimation, he will only need 10 minutes at most to refine a transcendent martial Dan. Sigh, what a pity. I won't be able to see Ren Xiangtian refine a transcendent martial Dan today. When the other martial artists in the room saw that Li Tongtian had successfully refined a transcendent martial Dan, they were no less astonished than Zhou Jianming. After all, a transcendent martial Dan was extremely difficult to refine. If some 6th-tier alchemists knew that Li Tongtian could refine a transcendent martial Dan so easily, they would probably vomit blood in anger. Look, Li Tongtian doesn't seem too happy. Why would he be unhappy after refining a transcendent martial Dan? Is he too excited? That doesn't make sense. If I had refined a transcendent martial Dan, I would definitely be jumping for joy. That's why you can't refine a transcendent martial Dan. The chatter of the surrounding martial artists did not affect Li Tongtian at all. He raised his palm slightly and then smashed it down forcefully. Crack! In the next moment, a crisp sound rang out in the room. When the martial artists saw the smashed elixirs on the floor, they were once again dumbfounded. Li Tongtian was way too willful. The transcendent martial Dan that he had just refined was smashed to pieces so easily. Wait a minute. Li Tongtian didn't refine a transcendent martial Dan, but a supreme martial Dan. Suddenly, a 4th-tier alchemist stared at the dregs of the elixirs on the floor and exclaimed. What? Supreme martial Dan? A martial artist exclaimed. Obviously, the elixirs that Li Tongtian refined were of extremely high quality. They had already reached the peak of the supreme martial Dan and were only one step away from the transcendent martial Dan. What a pity! The 4th-tier alchemist nodded, then shook his head and said, If I'm not wrong, something must have gone wrong at the last step, causing all his efforts to go to waste. I see. No wonder Li Tongtian smashed the elixirs. If it were me, I would have done the same. This feeling of falling from the clouds to the bottom of the valley is really worse than death. That's a little too much. You just didn't refine a transcendent martial Dan. You still have one more chance, and you're talking about worse than death. I despise you. Bang! The surrounding martial artists wanted to say something else, but they heard a dull thud. Then Ren Xiangtian rose from the ground and did something unbelievable in front of everyone. He reached his hand into the cauldron and took out an elixir in no time. Transcendent martial Dan. who said that Ren Xiangtian would need another 10 minutes to refine a transcendent martial dan. Humph. Who knows? The elixir that Ren Xiangtian refined might not be a transcendent martial dan, but a supreme martial dan. The martial artist who spoke earlier sneered. Ha ha ha. Who would have thought that the first martial artist to refine a transcendent martial dan would be Ren Xiangtian? Not long ago, when Li Tongtian refined a transcendent martial dan, Ouyang Hai did not even have the chance to mock Ningyu before Li Tongtian smashed the elixir. Now that Ren Xiangtian had refined a transcendent martial dan, Ouyang Yuan naturally had to mock him. Sixth brother, you've lost the bet. So, are you going to leave the room yourself, or should I invite you out? You. Ouyang Yuan's face turned green. He had already guessed that Ning Yu would not be able to refine a transcendent martial dan. However, he could not bring himself to say it out loud. However, he wouldn't agree to leave the room no matter what. Leaving the room would mean giving up on the title of Crown Prince. Giving up on the title of Crown Prince would mean that he would be ostracized by the eldest and third princes. He might not even be able to live after that. After all, the royal family did not care about relationships. The winner takes all. Bang! Ouyang Yuan's expression satisfied Ouyang Hai. However, just as he was about to force Ouyang Yuan to leave the room, another dull thud came from the room. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.